Going live. You're live.
Okay. Is anybody waiting?
No, not yet. Or nobody. Well, now there's somebody viewing. Hello, mystery guest.
Hello, viewer. Listener, rather, right now. If you're viewing the picture, I guess you're a viewer.
Yes.
Oh, I hope our guest shows up. Otherwise, I'm going to have to talk about this movie all by myself, which I can do.
I mean, you're not alone.
But it'll be a waste of that. Well, yeah, but I mean, the whole point was to... Maybe we're having technical difficulties. I know he was...
This is his first time.
Another headset that was getting tried out, so...
Oh.
Who knows? Maybe we've got that sort of complication in the mix.
Probably should have tried that out before 7:30, though.
You know. Some people on a different schedule. Plus, you know, it's way later over there.
Yeah. Which means it should have been tried earlier.
When in the history of the show has anything ever gone right?
Yeah.
But I'm sure once the chat fills up, we'll get rolling here, one way or the other. Oh man,
This mystery person's not talking.
Here we
We've
go.
got 2 likes.
Marc is here.
It's about time.
Hello. Hello. Oh boy. Ooh, kind of, barely.
Are you outside?
Having a little bit of technical difficulty.
It happens. Every live show it happens.
My mic I was hoping would work, which was working the other day, is not working today.
Yeah, that's pretty much how everything goes.
Sounds about right.
Par for the course. So, you know, welcome to the show. I guess what I and the listeners must be thinking is, what is the plan here, Marc?
Give me 1 second. I'm trying to make this louder.
Okay. Because we've got kind of a dicey connection.
Vathis says
Yeah.
ahoy.
Pathis, hey buddy.
Thanks for sending us this video or this movie.
So, let me just try this real quick.
Yeah, so this...
Otherwise, my other thought is I could try the phone.
Whatever you think will work best. You know, we're easy.
Okay, give me 1 second with this.
All right. I'll talk to the typing square. Vathis, once again, thank you for the Blu-ray and HD Blu-ray. I don't even know if my Xbox will play this because I'm a poor person with a regular Xbox. But,
Don't sound so happy about it.
but it's nice.
Look, not to get too into it, I had to watch something else before I went to bed that night.
Yeah, it was a classic. Are you Are You Afraid of the Dark? Yeah, Are You Afraid of the Dark situation where I had the same thing when I would watch that, and I would be like, gotta watch a little bit of the Roundhouse to get that flavor out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Bummer thing about this, Amazon destroyed this package, but that's, neither here nor there. Here it is. Oh no, the camera hasn't switched over.
Here it is, the logo.
Keep looking at that logo.
Well, we're getting close to 5 people, man. We've got 4 and 2 likes.
All right, guys. I hope you're gearing up for this. Man, oh boy.
Hold on, did that do anything?
No, you still sound like a robot.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Robot Marc.
All right, hold on. Let's get...
Everybody, one of my favorite shows on YouTube is just an iPhone and a headset, the free one they give you. So I'm sure it'll.
Yeah. And Popeye calls us on his
Yeah,
phone.
Popeye's got his phone set up.
Just don't make sure that your phone's not at 4%, and then you just hang up on us in the middle of a stream. Right when he was about to sing me a Journey song.
Very inconsiderate of him.
Right? How dare you,
After
Popeye?
Blowing 2.5 hours on this show. Then his phone goes and dies. I wouldn't sing that last song.
How rude.
Oh,
We got
Scott Vaughn.
progress here, Mark.
so my technical question for you.
Yeah. Sure.
So if I'm now on Discord on my phone, how do I know?
Let me hang up on you. When on the computer, I'll hang up and you call me on Discord. How about that? All right. Disconnected you.
Hey, Scott. And Kayla says, my stupid laptop isn't cooperating, so I'm using my backup.
Everything is not cooperating, Kayla. Welcome to the show. Everything is not cooperating.
Are you using your iPod? Because I know you've used that before.
Hello?
Hello.
Oh,
There we go.
hey,
That
we can
sounds
hear you.
terrific.
All right, awesome.
So,
Are we ready? Because we have 5 viewers, 3 likes, and we're 6 minutes in.
I think we are ready. Mark, hum a few bars just to test our connection.
Me.
There we go. I'm going to boost you up a little bit on my side.
And I'm just plugging the phone in. Sure we don't have a Popeye dying in the middle situation.
All right.
There we go.
All right, dudes and dudettes. Krista, roll the music.
You're listening to FFOP Radio.
Reach the
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the show. Speaking of Popeye, that is your favorite train wreck. Patron saint of the show, it is Flamingo Friday. Welcome. It is the live show. I've said welcome 4 times now.
Welcome.
Please welcome yourselves and welcome me into your life. I'm
Yes.
like Jesus. Sorry, Mark. So obviously you were listening to the preamble before the show started, but let's get him introduced nice and proper. First of all, Mark, I want to hear you say your last name aloud.
It is, believe it or not, Wiener.
Okay, so it is like Mark Wiener from Wienerville on Nickelodeon.
So here's something. I interned at Nickelodeon,
Mhm.
and at the same time that Mark Wiener was working, not intern, I worked there, and we see each other's mail.
That's insane.
That's funny.
Because when, obviously if you're a certain age, you're going to know Mark Wiener from Nickelodeon. And I know Mark Wiener in real life. And I think, whoa. And then you're like, oh, I used to get his mail. That's even weirder.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good Lord. Anywho, so that's Mark Wiener. Good buddy, Staten Island. Here we got in studio, Krista's over there on the couch.
I am here.
So we're going to, I'm giving this some thought, Mark. I don't want to blow my top too quickly.
So give it about 5-6 minutes.
So what I think is best is I'm going to do my best not to say the story did. I'll do that only when necessary.
Okay.
So let's just break down the movie. So obviously we're doing The Color Out of Space. This is the Richard Stanley. He left the U out of color, by the way, which is weird.
Yeah,
the
I guess he
original
was
was-
trying to modernize it or make a distinction.
Yeah, and I think that's to its detriment. We'll get into it. So The Color Out of Space, obviously based on the Lovecraft story, starring Nicolas Cage, with appearances by Tommy Chong and a water surveyor who literally draws every ounce of his screen time out like a tooth with a pair of pliers. So now here's what set me up for. I was like, oh, you know what? This might be okay. Even though it's lazy, I'm fine with it. You get narration over the credits, and it's basically the first paragraph of the story. And so it sets you up, or at least set me up for that expectation. Like, we're going to be adhering to the story, aka we're fucking just reading the text over a picture of a forest. But whoa. So it's I refresh my memory, Mark. I should have watched it again, but I was so angry I did not want to give any more of my time to it, which was a mistake. But I think it starts out with that weird ceremony, right?
Right. So the daughter, well, yeah, one of the main characters' daughters in this version of the story practices some type of Wicca religion.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, that was the first time my eyes rolled back and hit their limit.
Seriously, he was like, "Oh my god!"
Oh my god!
We're only 10 seconds into this movie.
I forgot to get my copy of the. Sure. Okay. Whatever. It's over there. I'll run, or Chris can run and get it when it's time. But I've got a surprise.
Uh-oh.
So we got this little witch out in the forest, and she's by a river, and she's doing all kinds of weird magic, and basically through her expositive spell to white magic or whatever, we learned that her mom has cancer. Don't hold on to that. It doesn't matter. And she's calling upon magic to fix it.
Yes, correct.
And so I'm like, uh-oh. We've got 3/4 of an inch of eyeliner on the bottom lids of these 2 eyes on this girl, and it is a disaster. So I'm like, oh crap. So
How old do you think she is?
yeah,
Mark?
let's talk about that, Mark. How old do you think this girl is?
She's supposed to be around 16 or so?
Yeah. That's what I thought, because I was like a soft 15, 16 area. So on to the scene walks our handsome, coiffed, mid-20s, nice-looking dude. The obvious pick for a hydrologist.
Sure.
Dude rolls up, and it's like every fucking Disney meet cute you've ever fucking seen. He rolls up and interrupts her magic, and she's like, "Oh, you ruined my spell, but since you're handsome, I'll do like a little tee-hee." And he's like, "Oh, you're hot. Wait, how old are you?" He never asked that.
No.
This dude is
No, definitely not.
I would say conservatively, let's say, he blasted through a hydrologist degree. Let's say he's 24, 25.
Yeah, he's got to be, because
Fair
in
enough.
4 years, he'd be 22.
Yeah. So let's say, he needs to get some time. He's now been hired by the Arkham municipality. So, I mean, he's
This
a
could
trusted
be his grunt
individual.
work job, though. This could be just like,
But I
all
would
right, you go
say,
out.
I think she was annoyed at first.
Right. But it was annoyed in a fun way. It was annoyed in a cheeky
Okay,
way.
fair enough.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, when you go over a certain age, like, because when I was, let's say, younger than 16, I always thought, like, isn't it obvious? Like, shouldn't it be obvious to an older person what a younger person looks and acts like? And now being an older person, I know exactly what a younger person looks and acts like. So the fact that this dude's like, "Hey, you're hot as shit. Here's my card. I'm a hydrologist. Board certified. Here's my card. Biatch. How old are you? 16? No problem here. This is Arkham."
Fine.
Oh, that's deep
You live
country.
on a farm.
Oh, so whatever. That's our little meet cute. And I'm already a little annoyed with our characteress and her new beau in this scene. But I'm willing to put it aside because I understand everything needs to be updated because nobody wants to watch a family in the 1920s on a dirt farm slowly die. So maybe,
Over a course of many years.
yeah, well, I would say maybe 2, but we'll get to it. We'll get to it. So,
Vathis says technically her spell may have worked.
no, here, Vathis, there's a problem there because magic isn't real.
But colors from outer space are?
That's a science. That's
an anomaly.
Not only that, but oh my god, the color. I feel like Peter Wells, and I'm gonna have to scream the bells 40 times when we get to the fucking color. But whatever, it's still like in my mind, it feels still kind of nebulous and dodgy, like time wise. I can't remember what he was wearing because like she rides a horse back home.
He's just in like a button-up shirt and like
Dockers
or
so
something.
I was like, is this a weird like M. Night Shyamalan? What was that movie, The Forest, where they were in the thing?
The Village.
Yeah, The Village.
The Village.
Not the forest. They lived in a forest. But whatever. Roll up on Nicolas Cage and he's got his coffee. He's like, I swear to you, he picked his wardrobe in every scene and they were like, yeah, do it. I don't give a fuck. Like, Richard Stanley was like, you know what, Nick? You're batshit. I'm batshit. Why don't you just bring your own wardrobe and whatever, show up in that fucking solid gold suit from head to toe. We'll throw it in.
Oh, Vatha says he definitely had a windbreaker. He did have a windbreaker.
Yeah.
Maybe it was like the 90s that this is supposed to be set in.
No, because they don't have a landline.
I think it's modern.
Yeah, it's definitely because they all have
they had cell phones
essentially
and shit.
iPhones,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
no landline. That's how you know it's the present, not the future. Because like if a horror took place, like if a color from space landed in our front yard, we wouldn't have a phone line because there isn't one.
Yeah.
So whatever. So here's the thing: all of these characters are awful, right? Like they are all very one note and very shallow, and it's like I felt a little dicey.
I thought the kid was so freaking cute.
The kid with the glasses.
Yeah, the kid.
Well, because there's
The
three.
son, yeah.
Well, there's three kids.
Well, he's the little boy.
Right. So the little kid.
The youngest.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's his name? I keep wanting to think it's JJ, but I don't think that's
Yeah,
right.
Jack.
Oh, okay.
So.
Right. Yeah, it's Jack.
Oh, and here's another thing that made me want to barf. The daughter, when she introduces herself, if you are a Lovecraft fan, this either made you like shit yourself with delight or piss yourself in anger. And I was the latter.
Guess what, dude?
She goes up to this dude, this water hydrologist dude. She does a little whoop. What's your name? Oh, Lavinia. Lavinia Gardner. Like, this is how the tone was set up. Richard Stanley is like, this is the only chance I'm going to get to make a Lovecraft movie. So I've got to throw every clever ass reference, everything I can throw in.
So let's back up a second there.
Barf.
Because his intention was to create a Lovecraft verse, like several films. So there's a possibility that Lavinia was going to continue on
To Dunwich?
Or something. Yeah, it's a possibility. That was his intention. Now, current events lead me to believe that will no longer be happening.
Probably not. Yeah, so those not in the know, Richard Stanley, there's abuse allegations going around. And once again,
Ouch.
Let me say this. Watching this movie, I can now say, like, you know how everybody looks back on the island of Dr. Moreau with Kilmer and Brando and says, what if? What could have been if Stanley had stayed? Now I know. And knowing is worse. Anyway.
Have you seen his earlier films?
What was his other one?
Hardware and Dust Devil.
Dust Devil, yeah. I've seen that, but it's a long, long time ago.
Okay. Because those are phenomenal.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I don't know what happened. Like, in between, maybe it happened at Island of Dr. Moreau. He went batshit insane. And like, here's the thing. If you're going to make a Lovecraft verse, like you want to make a Lovecraft cinematic universe, like, don't do all these fucking things that I'm about to be annoyed with. Mm-hmm. So the first one, whatever. So she comes home and, obviously modern day, and there's Nick Cage drinking his coffee. Here comes the wife, and she's like, oh, what are you doing? And she's like, I was out making spells and shit, and that's weird. And everybody is just totally cool with ratting on each other about everything, because the mom's up what's her nuts' ass, and Nick Cage is like, oh, let her be. She's a hilarious little witch. Oh, that's another thing, too, that goes nowhere. The hydrologist knows the difference between, like, Wiccan and Alexandrian, which does fucking matter. Like, that You're impressing a 16-year-old. Keep that in mind, you fucking weirdo. But
I'm being mad at him.
so now we got to go meet the brother, and she drops a dime on him, and it's like everybody already knows. She's like, "Oh, where's what's his nuts? Is he smoking weed in the barn?"
Benny.
Betty, yep.
And the mom is like, "Oh, I'm a guest."
He smokes marijuana
And it's like even like little Jack knows that the dude tokes up in the barn.
with what's his nuts.
Well, no, I'm sure he tokes up in the trailer with Tommy Chong,
Ezra.
but the barn's all him.
Yeah.
He's not. That's another thing. Oh my God. So I say a barn. What? He must be a farmer. Yeah, he is a farmer, kind of. If you raise an animal, are you a farmer or are you a rancher?
But they also have vegetables.
It's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they do have some
Yeah,
tomatoes.
They've
They've
got
got
a
both.
garden.
Okay, well, whatever.
I'd consider that a farm/ranch.
This feels so hipster to me, but Nicolas Cage and company are alpaca farmers.
I feel
So-
like that's such a random animal.
So there's a reference in there somewhere. I forget the exact reference, but the general idea is when the mother got ill, they left the city for this farm life, and
Yes.
so this is all new to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's and you sort of get that, like, they over the course of time that we sort of get like the wife. Well, and obviously we know the wife was sick because that was the whole cancer spell at the beginning of the movie.
Right.
But then we learned,
Right.
We moved out here. We're well off. We're raising alpacas
This
now.
is all ours now.
Yeah,
So beautiful.
it feels like what? So, but that's the thing. They moved from the city to the country and made the attic like a fucking Wall Street style office for the mom. So great. What did you save?
Vatha says the tomato scene was amazing. Look, we're not even close to being there, and that was disgusting.
The tomato scene is nuts. Here's the thing. Every time I would get to critical mass of anger at this movie, Nick Cage would have a freak out, and I'd be like, okay, like that calmed me down. Like just keep him freaking out every 20 minutes and I can get through this movie.
Well, so I looked at David, like the first or second freak out. I looked at David and I said, whenever he gets like that, he sounds like Trump. His voice and his mannerisms with his hands are like Trump. And I'm like, is he trying to like do something there? And David said that he's always like that.
Every video, every movie he's in, he does something crazy. Like watch Vampire.
Yeah.
What's the fucking movie? Vampire something. Vampire's Kiss.
Vampires.
Yeah, he's like, oh no, he's like Keanu Reeves in that fucking movie.
He always wants to try somebody out, maybe.
He's a weirdo, but whatever.
But I thought what worked about him in this movie was that when it starts doing the wacko thing, that sort of comes out later, which I thought really worked.
Yeah, I think Nicolas Cage is expertly used here because when you have a situation where you have an escalation of stress and you need someone to repeatedly freak out, who are you going to call? Nick Cage.
Yeah, and you get his whole everything changes. It's not just like his voice, like his whole.
Yeah, he goes
his
through.
face
He throws
changes.
himself. I can't believe like he. Whatever. Full disclosure, he most of the time looks like a bloated mess, and I'm like, bleh.
Yeah.
But like he gets shirtless, I think, at one point, and I was like, oh, Nick Cage. Somebody's been doing some crunches.
Right before the scene, he did crunches.
I was impressed. Well, I mean, he had to lose some weight, so I mean, he looks better than he has.
His hair needed to be something needed to be done with his hair.
So then we cut up to the girl's room, and she's got a copy of the Necronomicon.
Right.
Now, this is a very special copy of the Necronomicon because I own a copy. It's out of my bookshelf, and I should have brought it in to hold up for the camera. Krista, while I'm vamping, maybe you could go out and grab it or something.
I don't even know where it is. You've got so many books.
Well, whatever. It's if you know what I'm talking about. It's a little pocket book. It's handheld, paperback. It says Necronomicon, and who published it? Do you think, Mark? Do you know this? It's trivia.
I do not.
It's Avon calling Avon. Avon published the Necronomicon. Like, I can't think of anything less legitimate than that. Like, even the Anton LaVey Satanic Bible has at least some credence when it comes to like demonic holy texts compared to the Avon edition of the Necronomicon.
So did the bedroom scene happen before the dinner scene?
Which bedroom scene?
Where you were just saying that she had the Necronomicon.
Well, you just see a quick shot of it. Like it's not the later one where she goes bonkers.
Okay.
So whatever. That's when I was like, fuck you, you piece of... I was so like, if we're going to be living in a universe where Lovecraft, the mythos exists, I refuse to believe that the timelines converge solely on the Avon edition of the motherfucking Necro-fucking-nomicon. How dare you, sir?
Did you happen to catch the other book that she displays?
I did not. I just assumed it was just going to be another callback to like maybe Cult the Ghouls or something.
She has a book at one point called The Willows.
Oh, yes.
Nicolas Cage
yeah.
had that.
So
Was it Nicolas Cage?
yeah.
Okay, so which is a big influence on Lovecraft.
Yeah, so let's unpack that. So Nick Cage goes out to the barn to investigate something, and we get our first jump scare. Someone comes up with a flashlight to give him a good spook in the barn. So he gives us a little whoa, and he throws his hands up, and he's holding up a copy of The Willows. And Krista will back me up. That is the first time in the movie I said, fuck you, aloud.
Yeah. It's true.
Because that's like, here's the thing. That's just for fan service. That's an Easter egg the size of a fucking watermelon sitting in the middle of your lawn. So let me unpack it in case you don't know. So The Willows is an Algernon Blackwood story. Now, how do you feel about Algernon Blackwood, Mark?
I got to be honest with you. Other than knowing it's a Lovecraft influence, I don't know much about Algernon Blackwood.
Well, let me spoil it for you. It's a snooze fest. He is a very boring writer. He also wrote The Wendigo, which everybody knows. If you haven't read it, you know of The Wendigo. He also did The Wendigo.
Yes, absolutely.
So, but he did The Willows, which was supposed to be this masterpiece of horror, and it was a masterful sleep aid when I tried to read it. Woof. But the fact that, like, here's the thing. There are so many more, like, don't hold up, whoa, The Willows. Hold up, like, the white people. Like, hold up a Lord Dunsany thing. Hold up a Poe thing. Don't fucking show me Algernon Blackwood, and then don't have it, like, a copy
Relevant.
of a... Yeah. Not only that, but, like, it had to be, like, it looked like a children's book because the words The Willows had to be big enough to be caught in the split second as Nicolas Cage waves his crazy arms around.
It was definitely a case of look at me, look what I know.
Every reference and everything that Richard Stanley put in this movie to be like, see, I know Lovecraft. Like, it felt like someone coming up behind me, putting a nail in the back of my head and smashing it with a ball peen hammer. Like,
So,
a little finesse is all I want, people.
can we talk a little bit about just the acting period? Like,
Dear
so
God.
at the beginning, when Lavinia went out to the barn to talk to Benny,
That whole manufactured conversation.
was terrible. And then their dinner scene with all of them around the damn table talking about the food that Nicolas Cage made, and
It
just
is-
like the banter, and it was just
It's Troll 2 level dialogue before anything terrible happens to the family. So I was suspecting a gas leak. I thought, oh my God, what is up with these people? Like, it's like, this whole movie is one long cliche. And if you like that, then you'll love this. Because, you know, like every movie where like whoever smokes weed always gets caught with a lungful. So when Lavinia runs out to Benny, of course, she's like, Benny, and you see a like huge, like atomic Terminator 2 style blast of weed smoke come from around a door, and the guy's like, no joint in his hand. And as he's coughing, no residual smoke. Where'd that come from, Benny? Not my, whatever, aliens did it. I'm not here to nitpick.
And also, so at the dinner scene, they're all waiting for the mother to come down and eat her favorite meal that they all hate and she also hates. She's
Oh my God, that
she's
meal.
like a stocks tradesperson. So they moved out to the fucking country to be farmers, and she's still working in the.
Mark, let me ask you this: on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you think that entire scene was improv?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
All of it.
I mean,
I feel like Nicolas Cage.
11.
Everybody got let loose. Like Nick Cage, Richard Stanley was like, whatever. Nick Cage, go nuts. I feel that he even got, when he pulls that pot open and we see that boiling cauldron of crazy that Nicolas Cage is prepared for his family, I 100% believe in my heart that Nick Cage prepared that with his own hands. Because what we're looking at, for those of you who haven't seen the movie yet, here's what we're looking at. Like a nice, I feel like it's even china. Like it's ceramic or something. It's got a nice top on it. So he goes, voila. And it's like, imagine dumping baked beans, cream corn, canned green beans, everything you have in a can in your pantry into a thing, and then throw one hot dog in it.
Yeah.
And then he starts saying like it's some French dish, and he's ladling it out to these people, and they're eating it as if like this is something humans would accept.
It's your mother's favorite.
Jesus fuckity shit. Oh my God. It was that. Here's the thing. Here's
Cassoulet.
Here's the movie in a nutshell. That bowl. Done. After you see that bowl, say, oh, that's the rest of the movie. Shut it off.
Yeah. And then the mom comes back down finally after complaining about the internet because, the internet's going to suck in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, she's very angry.
A stocks person. And she goes, I'll make you guys some real dinner later. So obvious, what's the point?
I don't get it. I maybe that was a whole, but that's the thing. Everything they do is, as if they are in front of a studio audience. It's like they're all playing to the back of the room. They're all like, ho, ho, father, hi, diddly hee. And the fact that they were drawing out this dinner scenario, and obviously it's garbage.
It was 20 minutes. I feel like that scene was 20 minutes long.
Oh, yeah. It's nuts. So, whatever.
See, I found the whole thing so bizarre that I was fascinated by it.
Oh, yeah. Don't get me wrong. It's an exemplary piece of Cronenberg style filmmaking, because the whole time I was like, what?
I don't think we talked through the whole dinner scene, but it was weird.
The equivalent would be if you were to look at me while I'm watching that movie in that scene, it was if someone were standing in front of me with a leaf blower in my face. My mouth and my eyes are as wide as they can go. My nose is just flaring, and I'm like, what the fuck? These aren't humans. And this is before the craziness, keep in mind.
Yeah.
But it gets sexy later because
Kinda.
Nick Cage and wife, Nick Cage and company, Teresa, they go out to the veranda and have a nice little conversation about how nice it is to own a farm and yada, yada, yada. And here's the thing. Do one or the other. We already have established that she has battled and may be still battling cancer. They make mention of a removal surgery. And she says she doesn't feel sexy after the surgery, and they haven't banged in 6 months. So my mind obviously jumps to double mastectomy.
Right. And I was like, maybe she had breast cancer. And I look, I'm like, nope, she's got boobs. So
either that was just an oversight and they forgot to give her a real tight sports bra. Or she had something removed internally and is so ashamed of the thing that got removed from inside of her, she doesn't want to bang Nick Cage as an excuse.
I think she had uterine or cervical cancer or something like that. But
yeah, that's kind of what I took it as.
It would have been nice for some kind of anything.
Yeah, we spend so much time on needless nitty gritty when we have an actual depth, a situation with depth, instead of just two teenagers worrying about where their next weed's coming from. Here's an older couple dealing with a very scary situation, and they leave that totally murky. I guess in theme with literally everything else that happens.
Yeah.
See, it's funny. I didn't react to it in that same way at all. To me, it was, it was all about this thing that happened to her was the whole impetus for them being where they are and trying to sort of function in this new environment that clearly some of them don't want to be in.
No, I totally got that. Like
Yeah.
the bones are there. Like the exposition left me in no uncertain terms where everybody
Right.
was. My problem is they all just felt like before they got released on set were hit with a pipe in the head. And whatever, like I understand this is like probably a super low budget thing. I haven't looked into it. But it just felt like this is everybody's first time except for Nick Cage.
Yeah, okay, I can see where you're coming from with that. I mean,
like, don't get me wrong. I get if they were better actors, I would have cared about the characters. But since every line from the younger kids was so glib, like maybe that's the thing is like the older, like Nick Cage and wife were decent. They had okay chemistry. They were fine. The young kid, decent actor because he doesn't deliver every line ironically and glib. Mm-hmm. Whereas witch sister and dope doobie brother, they're just like, too cool to be here. And dude's always got the hair over his face. I want to be like, commit. But it's the least of this movie's problems.
Yeah.
So now it's been a long 6 months, as we had mentioned earlier. So now it's time to get it on. And now is the specific night. All the stars have aligned, pun intended, if there is one there. The stars have aligned, and now it is time for Nick Cage to take his wife to the mat. And this scene, I cannot fucking believe, like, this scene is the scene in every monster movie where it's, the scene I'm talking about. It's the janitor wearing headphones.
Yeah. Except
for an entire family sans the little kid. Like, Godzilla is literally behind you, but you're mopping the floor going doo 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 doo. And so we get to see like the brother distracted with something, the sister distracted with something, the little kid, he's psychically linked somehow to this meteor, so he's wigging.
Well, and Benny is okay, and there's also P.S. There's also a dog named Sam. He's a German Shepherd.
I don't even I wouldn't even bother. Like, I feel that was under kicking the dick. He keeps getting set up and set up and set up. Like, here's the dog, Sam. He's gonna he shows up so seldomly that later in the movie when they're like, I can't find Sam, I kept thinking, who is Sam? I just assumed he was the dog, and I happened to be right.
Well, he always sensed when something was wrong. But anyway, Benny was watching on the computer a bunch of moon shit. Like, he's a pothead, weird farmer kid looking at the moon. It's
so, all of the decisions made are like, I don't know. It feels like the laziest thing you could do. I feel like the cancer angle on the wife is way played for sympathy because they do literally nothing to change her life outside of just moving her to an attic on a farm.
Yeah. Kayla says sometimes the janitor with headphones is the most believable and relatable character.
Don't get me wrong. If some shit's going on behind me and I know that it's not going to involve me and I have my headphones in, I ain't turning around. Let Jason do what he wants. I got things to do up here. I don't want to, I've seen enough Friday the 13th movies that if you can't see or hear Jason, he'll fucking leave you alone. Maybe that's his T-Rex thing. Mm-hmm. It's like the T-Rex, quote unquote, can only see when it moves. But if you have music and are not looking at Jason, you're safe.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a million ways in which I can be proven wrong that I'm forgetting. Anyway, back to the whole bang sesh. So Nick Cage and wife are getting down to it. And, obviously they're a little rusty. And I feel like this scene is drawn out way too much. But the color out of space shows up. And now it is as if a million candle spotlight, the color magenta was turned down literally right outside of every window of the house.
And the house is shaking.
And shit is going wild. Does not but keep in mind also, I overlooked this at the initial viewing, but it has been 6 months. So maybe
Right.
It's living
They're
in the
engrossed.
moment.
Yeah, maybe he like Nick Cage after 6 months is so into it. His like the tension all resides in his face. So his face and eyes scrunch closed as tight as a bulldog's. And it wasn't until like the Big Bang or whatever when the meteor hit when he's like, "What?" and his face finally relaxed. Jesus Christ. But like try to suspend your disbelief when like at one point I think someone's like, "Is that an earthquake?" And Nick Cage continues plowing his wife heedless. Whatever. So we have a whole family full of janitors with headphones, save for the little kid.
Vatha says, if the colors are rocking, don't come a knocking.
Oh yeah. So now this is the part where little dude Jack, he's been affected, and so he goes. I think they find him out like in the front yard, right? Oh no, he's in the hallway.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
like,
sitting in the hallway, like
catatonic.
swaying.
Yeah, he's in the hallway doing that whole like Shining, but there's only one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And you would think now I can because back before I had a child, I could say I would speculate. Well, if I had a kid, I would do this. Now that I have a kid, I know exactly what I would do. If I came out of my child was sitting on the floor like catatonic and drooling, and like obviously distressed, I'm not going to like lean down and like softly but firmly give his shoulder a nice little shake and be like, "Hey buddy, what's the haps?"
You okay?
Like, what the fuck? Like, the kid's wigging and there was a huge purple blast. Like, not for nothing, Nick, but kick it up a notch. Like, from white, just take it up to condition yellow. Be always on a little bit of alert. And, whatever. So we got the meteor. The titular color from space has arrived. Now, Mark, when did you read the story first, or did you watch the movie first? Okay.
No, well, I read the story a long time ago.
Right.
I had seen the movie when it first came out, and then I recently reread the story and then rewatched the movie.
So let me ask you this: when you first read the story, when obviously it's described as a color beyond the spectrum, but your mind has to come up with something. What did your mind come up with when it was described in the story?
I almost pictured like multiple colors at once because it was the only thing my mind could sort of conceive, that was a color that didn't exist.
Mm-hmm. Let me run this up your flagpole because everybody's seen this, and I think it's the only thing your mind can wrap itself around and be relatable. But a single drop of dirty oil in a puddle will turn the top of it a multitude of shimmering colors, between green, purple, blue, and etc.
Right.
That's what I always pictured it as, like just this amorphous, shifting oil sheen of color. So the fact that they nailed it down to a single shade of magenta really felt tone deaf.
I think in a way, it was almost a way to say, like, there's no way to actually show this, so we're just going to go with this. And, I think to me that actually worked because there was nothing that they could show that's going to be a color that doesn't exist.
Right.
But they just kind of left that to your mind to sort of put together.
Not to say that I'm smarter than any filmmaker that's ever adapted Lovecraft, but I've thought of this as a film before, and it's fucking simple as shit. Maybe no one knows the oil sheen thing that I'm talking about, so maybe they'll glance past that. But I'm digressing to the actual story. But in the story, at some point, the trees on the farm sway despite having no wind, and the end of the needles and of the pines and the leaves of the trees have a faint luminescence. Now, everybody at some point has been to Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey and seen those fucking fiber optic things that whatever. It's like a little light with a troll hair of plastic that light goes through. Sure. Guess the shit what? Like, it's practically described like that in the book. If I were to do this, I would get a shit ton of that stuff, make a tree out of it, paint it all green except for the tips where the fucking color is in the goddamn thing, and then roll a bunch of fucking colors through it rather. But he's like, purple. He's like, you know what? Vaporwave is big. These hipsters, like fucking Nick Cage is an alpaca farmer. Hipsters love Vaporwave. Let's just keep it nice and simple.
Well, and the thing is, like, it's fine that they made it the fuchsia, whatever color, but don't make reference to it being a color you've never seen before
Right.
in the movie when you've obviously seen the color magenta, pink, whatever.
It felt... There was one line where Nick Cage tries to justify what's going on here because... Like the cops come out and everybody's like, "Oh, let's look at this meteor." And,
Oh, that mayor's a bitch, by the way.
and like the
Yes,
mayor
yes.
comes out. Oh my god, the personal dynamics of this small town that we never see, by the way. So the entire town consists of like Nick Cage and family, Tommy Chong, the mayor, like 4 cops.
It's an hour away from their house.
Yeah, and like
Right.
How uninteresting is it in this town where like a meteor hits somebody's private property and the mayor shows up?
She's like, this better be worth my time.
Bitch, no one. Why are you here? Don't
one
you have
asked
mayor
you.
shit back home? Like, what the fuck? So, like, whatever. So, yeah, everybody shows up and they're like, oh, that's weird. And he's like, Nicolas Cage, I know 1000% that in the moment made a character decision that he got tired of over the next couple of scenes. Because the meteor shows up, there it is, purple as the day is long, and it's sparkly and shit, and everybody's looking at it. Not a care in the world that it might be radioactive. They're just like getting their nuts as close to it as possible to fry them to kingdom come for all they know.
Touching it.
Yeah, but whatever. Nicolas Cage, smells something. Something stinks. And I was like, oh, what? It's affecting him in a different way than everybody else. So, we're starting to plant some psychological stuff. It is later further elaborated on when he's like, it smells like my dad's mortuary or whatever. And then after that, he's like, oh, done with that.
It comes up toward the end
Yes.
again.
But here's the thing. He makes such a big fucking deal of it. He's
Yeah.
like, oh, God, don't you fucking smell that? Oh, my God. He's like out. He's like in front of his family. Like he's asking the mayor. He's asking cops. He's like, don't you smell that? And then just to drop it for 9 consecutive scenes. And then like the equivalent later when it's brought back up to be like, whew.
Well, and whenever
What
he asks, nobody ever responds to him.
Yeah. Like he's sixth sensing himself. Like maybe he's asking that question as a ghost and no one hears it, and then he pops back into reality. And that's what I would have liked, more psychological stuff. When it's a physical horror, it's
Yeah, I like psychological, not gross.
yeah. So whatever. Everybody comes and sees the thing, and they're like, "All right, great, you got a meteor." Nick Cage thinks it stinks. Everybody's got their own opinion.
And the hydrologist shows up
The
because
hydrologist
the water guy
oh my
knows meteors.
Why? Like, oh my god, in every movie, like science fiction movie, where you have science man who comes in and helps solve everybody's problems, it is to your benefit not to make them an insanely specific discipline that also would make them useless in literally every other situation in this movie. Because dude is a hydrologist, and he's like, oh, the fucking mayor is... The hydrologist shows up, and the mayor goes, well, what do you think about this rock? And he goes down as if he has expertise. I would have said, mayor, hydrology is way different than geology. I don't want to tell you how to run your city, but geology is rocks,
Maybe
hydrology,
he minored in
water.
geology.
I never saw a certificate, nor did I hear him ever mention that he liked rocks. Not even a passing interest.
Why not just say you're like a city surveyor? Because then you could probably run the whole gamut
Or
of
just
things.
say you're a magic scientist for everything you're going to do in this fucking... Say you're a wizard.
There you
For
go.
all the skills he has, if this were D&D, he
A wizard.
constantly rolls nat 20s. Holy fuck. Like, I know you're a hydrologist, but...
Well, I don't want to skip ahead, but he's clearly a hydrologist because of the end of the movie.
Right.
Oh, yeah, no. He... Not only do we know clearly by the end of the movie by his actions, but it's literally every other word out of everybody else's mouth when he's around.
Yeah.
No, I mean he's made to be a hydrologist because of what happens at the end of the movie in
Yeah.
terms of the story.
Right.
Which we'll get.
We'll
Yeah.
get there.
We'll get there.
That's a whole thing.
Because that, oh boy. So, whatever. Now, this is something that I was interested to see and glad they kept because it was true to the story. After the first day and everybody comes and makes a big deal out of the meteor, that night there is a storm and this thing is struck multiple times by lightning. Like they call it, it's like a thunderstone in the story, but it's like, it must attract the lightning. Some weird thing in this stone is attracting energy, electrical energy right now, but energy in general. Keep that in mind. But whatever, 8 or 10 times it gets zapped. And it not only does it get zapped, but I forgot to mention it's been getting smaller.
Right.
It's wasting away. It's something in the atmosphere or whatever. It's gonna blur story and movie now, but it's like a plasticky type of material. It's not like stone and it's not like metal. It's like weird and no one knows what it's all about. But after it's zapped by lightning a bunch of times, it's gone. There's no more color out of space. You just have a big stinky crater that only stinks to Nick Cage.
But flowers pop up.
Yeah, we start.
Yes.
So we have a well. The well
Oh,
is
yeah.
the hidden. How many characters do we have? 7. Let's say it's the hidden 8th character.
Sure.
So the well, even though it is whatever 2020, everybody's got a smartphone. They're still drinking from a well,
Well, they're in the middle of nowhere. They're an hour away from a city, and there's nobody else around them except for
right?
a
but
camper.
but right now, keep in mind they are not to be a Mr. Drummond, but they are men and women of means. And not only that, this is a beautiful house out in the sticks.
Wells aren't terrible.
Could they not buy a pump or pay a man to put a pump in to have running water in the house? Well, how do they shit? If they have to drink out of the well, where is the water coming for their toilet?
They just moved there. Maybe that was in
Right.
the,
They're saying we don't know how long it's been there.
Yeah, it's
You know,
been
maybe
6
that's
months.
part of the future plan.
Right. It's been 6 months since they had sex. It could have been a month since they moved there.
No, if you're going to put plumbing in, it has to, no one's going to be move in and oh, now we got everything put away. All the childhood keepsakes are put away. Now let's get it the fuck out of here so we can rip this place apart and put indoor plumbing in. No fucking way, sir and madam.
Kayla says, "Wait, hydrology is a study of water. I so wanted it to be a hydrology, the study of hide and seek."
Or a hydrologist, the study of the hydra?
Hydras.
Kayla
The
says,
deadly hydra.
she goes, "Ahem, not everybody's got a smartphone."
What? Yeah, well, whatever. It's 2020.
In the movie,
and
everybody has a
everybody in the
smartphone.
movie. And they live in the sticks, Kayla. Let's think about that. Anyway, so now we are starting to things are getting sinister. More and more of these purple flowers are showing up, and little Jack is acting weirder and weirder all the time. And for some reason, I don't know why, you'd think the hydrologist would just be like, hey, I'm here to do a survey of the land, as I said before. But he checks in with everybody living there for why?
Because he's interested in Lavinia.
But then he again, that's where we're in dicey territory because at that point, let's say, there's some confusion about age and he shows up and realizes, oh, look, it's a family of 2 parents and 3 children all living at home. I've made a terrible mistake. Time to back away slowly. He doubles down. He's like, and at one point, the mom, when what is the hydrologist's name? I want to call him something.
Is it? No, not Nathan. Nathan's the father.
Yeah, Nathan's the father.
Ezra's the
Ezra's the neighbor. The
I'm
hydrologist's
forgetting.
name? Ward.
Ward. That's right. Of course. How could we forget that?
Ward. So, Ward shows up and he's talking to Nick Cage, and obviously there's some racy thoughts and emotions between the two. And the daughter runs inside, and the mom is like, oh, that's cute. What's up with that? And blah, blah, blah. And I want to be like, do you not see this? Maybe that's just the thing. Maybe I just have to accept that everybody's okay with this situation.
I mean, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm just confused as to why everybody has to always go check on the mother. Everybody's like, oh, she's like, go check on your mother. And that's why she goes inside. Go check on your mother. But she's fine. She's just hanging out.
It's lazy writing.
But that's Nick Cage being fatherly and saying, I don't, get away from, Ward. But I did not perceive the age difference to be as large as you did.
It just felt really sketchy to me. Like, at first it didn't feel too gross because I didn't give it any thought. Because all we're seeing is a young-ish girl that could be anywhere from late teens to 20s and a swarthy-looking man with a nice jawline and some beard stubble wander out of the woods. I'm thinking, okay, my hackles didn't raise until I was like, wait, somebody like older Wiccan would have worn off by now, so that's a weird thing. And then when she rides up and she's like, Dad, to Nick Cage, I was like, oh, full alert, this is fucked.
Well, she's definitely like the middle child.
Right. I don't know. But I know maybe I'm overblowing it.
I don't think so.
But it's
to be a hydrologist, I mean, come on.
He's a hydrologist. I can't get over that.
He's got to be at least 22.
He's an educated man. Why would you throw that all away for jailbait? Nicolas Cage's jailbait. Anyway. So where are we in the story? Holy crap.
They're all still staring at the meteor because you said Ward was talking to Nicolas Cage.
No, it's been zapped. So
right, we already had the zapping.
Yeah, it was zapped. So yeah, they invite Ward in, and he notices something weird in the water, and not for nothing, but it should not take a hydrologist to see shit floating in your water. Like, I don't think I would need a scientist to be like, wait, before you drink that, look into it, because now as they do, it's like, oh, here's a bunch of now. That's the color I was expecting, Mark. The color
that oily.
Yeah, the color of because we see it a couple of times. Nick Cage loves a stiff drink, and when he puts ice in there, the ice has a nice mixture of hues that range, and that's what I was expecting. Didn't get it. Whatever.
I guess that was kind of the reference to that effect that's mentioned in the story.
Yeah, I need more than a reference, though. If you're going to cut out major swaths of usable material, don't skimp it. Whatever. Moral of the story is, dude's like, I'm going to take a sample of this water because I don't think that weird toxic shit should be floating in it. And I don't know why. Why does Benny take him to go meet Ezra? Just because they love
to tell him about the water, right?
No, because they have to tell him after they go back. I don't know. Mark, why did they go see Tommy Chong?
I thought it was because he, like you said, he has to warn him not to drink the water.
Yeah, because
the first time
and Nicholas and Nathan says, go ahead, you can show him where he lives on the land because he's squatting on the land.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And he goes, he might not talk to you, but
it feels murky to me because in that situation. Again, since no one in this movie acts like a human being, if I were a hydrologist, I'm not a hydrologist, me just as a normal human being, if I saw creepy shit floating in the water and I was like, hey, don't drink this, I would then follow up and be like, do you have bottled water? Like, is there a plan? Are you taking this seriously?
Well, he did.
But they didn't, though, because they kept drinking it.
Well, just because they didn't listen, he said to them, drink bottled water.
He tells them not to drink it. Yeah.
Yeah, but it just feels like, obviously he told these 6 people not to drink it, and they're like, no thanks, glug, glug, glug. So why did he think, like, Tommy Chong would be the bastion of reason? Like, this dude squatting on their property in an old, like, Windstar trailer. So here's there was obviously a lot of detail put into his trailer.
Yes.
There are a lot of props. There are a lot of gadgets and gizmos. There are cameras. There's
stuff.
Well, my thing is, we get like that scene tells a story that I was begging for, and all we get is like, hey, Tommy Chong, I love weed. Watch out for the water. Tommy Chong says, don't worry, the weed's going to keep me healthy. And I love coffee. Do you want some Joe? That's his whole thing.
And he has a cat.
And he has a cat.
Cat, yeah.
And I wanted to be like, but because what? So we have a dude who's got, like, they show us security cameras. They show us and imply through the visual medium of storytelling that we've got a paranoid dude living off the grid squatting. So when you walk in and he's all, hey man, free love, brother, have this and I'm cool, and walk in whenever you fucking want. What's with the security system?
That I agree with. That's the one thing I thought his character clearly needed a lot more explanation.
Yeah, he was by far and away, even though he only has 2 scenes, and in one, he's merely a dried out prop.
Yes.
He is my
Husk.
Oh yeah, he's my favorite character. He delivers exposition just right. Like here's what Richard Stanley knows how to write. Old stoners. He can't write teenage girls, he can't write teenage boys, he can't write adult men or women. But he somehow captured Tommy Chong's voice and assessed his abilities perfectly. So that I'll say for the man.
Yeah, I think any other actor wouldn't have worked. I think he needed to be
It was
the
weird.
person. And he was in 3 scenes.
Yeah, so his
2
name,
alive and 1 not so much.
Yeah, his name is Ezra.
Right.
What's his last name in the movie was?
Oh God.
Because in the book, his name is it's something zany too. All
Well,
of these people.
Yeah, like that character.
Yeah.
Oh,
Amy Pierce.
right.
Amy Pierce is the neighbor. So Ezra something. I was like, what? But whatever.
I don't
it's
think they
fine.
ever say his last name.
Yeah, he's just Ezra. It doesn't matter. Like that's the
He
thing.
smokes weed with Benny.
And
That's all that matters.
80% of me was totally sold on the idea that since Tommy Chong was a weed smoker, that it was somehow going to combat the alien influence of The Color Out of Space.
Nope.
Totally wrong. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh man, Tommy Chong's going to kill the alien with the power of weed. But he didn't write the movie. He's just in it.
He said that. David actually said that. He was like, weed's gonna be it.
I didn't think, full disclosure, I didn't think it was going to save everybody, but I thought it was going to at least prolong Tommy's stint.
Not so much.
He look fast, man. He bites the dust. So, whatever. Everybody's going crazy, and in like the very next scene, they've all been drinking the water and they're all starting to act on edge. Like Nick Cage is stressed. Benny is losing track of time. Like he keeps putting the alpacas away and feeding the alpacas, but they're always out just in the yard.
Oh, and Jack's whistling to the well.
Yeah, Jack is whistling to the well because he's got a friend down there.
And then did you talk about the news? The news crew? That comes after
Right, they
find
come
him?
out to interview him.
Yeah, oh my god.
Oh my god.
What a...
Why?
Another part of the movie that was such a welcome relief when the news crew comes out and they interview Nick Cage, and we're watching it as he's watching it, and he's like, I can't believe, like, no one told me my fucking hair, and I'm blah 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 blah, and he's like yelling at his family, and everybody is going crazy in a slightly subtly different way.
He told the news crew, "Oh, my wife and I were about to bang after 6 months
Yeah.
without having sex."
He is so forthcoming, but that's like his psychosis, because in a perfect world, what would have happened was all of these people would have devolved very slowly, but over the course of 90 minutes, we had to kick it up to a long weekend.
Seriously.
And so that's the thing. While Nick Cage is going nuts over this interview, and like, I can't believe he actually calls attention to his hair. I didn't think he would, like, even in a movie, ever do that. But his wife is in there chopping carrots, like 1,000-yard stare. Obviously, we're setting up.
Can't
Like,
do it.
anyone in their right mind knows what's coming, because there's 40 cuts of the carrots to her fingers, to her face,
and
to her
Jack's
fingers.
walking closer and closer into the kitchen.
And I don't, let's just, obviously you see what's coming here. She's going to cut her fingers off.
Oh, God.
And I just want to take a step back. into the reality of the situation where that was she's either the strongest woman in the world and was able to slice through bone as easy as carrot, which is, I don't, you would have to really, like, it would take you 2 hands to cut through one of your bones.
Or it's a really sharp knife.
Whatever, sharpest knife in the world. However it happens, and then she just turns around and completely unnaturally is like, maybe people do this. Maybe while they're cutting carrots, and obviously dinner is not ready if you're still cutting raw vegetables. You turn over one shoulder and lightly toss your hand over now that it's missing 2 fingers, and it's like blood. Dinner's ready. I can't. Yeah, Krista, every time dinner is ready, it's always immediately after I've finished cutting a carrot.
Yep. You know, dinner's ready, and there's just carrots on a cutting board.
And then my 2 fingers.
And his fingers. But like, I can't. That's when I knew I wasn't gonna like this movie. Well, I mean, I personally didn't mind.
Krista doesn't like body horror.
I don't. I like all the
okay.
psychological mess with your mind stuff. I do not like, a kid walking into his mother, chopping your fingers off, and being like, "Mommy's hurt."
Yeah, it's.
And then it just went downhill from there.
all of them are crazy, and so we have a perfect opportunity now. So Nick Cage needs to take his wife to the hospital, and this is another point of contention I have, because I want to jump back for a minute. When Nick Cage's youngest son, Jack, is like nearly comatose, and the wife is like, "My God, we need to get him to a hospital." He's like, "The hospital's an hour away. It's an hour away." So your justification for not taking your comatose kid to the hospital at the behest of your hysterical wife is that it's an hour away?
Yeah, he had to have some bourbon and sit really close to the camera.
Like, oh my God, by the time we get there, he'll be fine. Just fucking forget it, wife. But he lucks out, and he only goes
He snaps out of it.
He's only down for like 4 minutes. But yeah, anyway, so they're going to the hospital. And so now we've got a nice separation of kids and the parents.
And the parents.
I'm not gonna lie, I thought when they went to the hospital and left, essentially in my head, left the movie, I partially thought maybe Nick Cage, maybe they're just not gonna come back, and the rest of the movie is just the 3 kids trying to survive whatever's going on.
No,
Obviously, that wasn't gonna happen. But
they're needed for the movie, but it's interesting because they're all going crazy, and so you feel like, or at least I felt like, this brief respite, because they were. Since the hospital's an hour away and you're going to an emergency room and that's another 8-hour wait, and then whatever the service is and yada yada, they're gone for the entire day. So that's a nice built-in excuse.
She had surgery.
Yeah. Fuck it, in a day, whatever. That's a little incredulity. Like what they say, whatever. We couldn't save your fingers, but we'll wrap them up and send you home. I get that. But
no, they brought those fingers with them and they put them back on.
Yeah, they stayed glad fresh all the way to the hospital.
Stick them in milk.
For an hour. Don't put them in milk, for the love of God. Don't. I don't care what the cartoons in the 80s or 90s told you. If you lose a body part or a tooth or something, don't put it in fucking milk.
Put it on ice.
Was that a thing? I don't recall that.
When I was a kid, I was told by dinosaurs, by other different cartoon characters, like, hey, you lose a tooth, put it in milk, like something, you chop a finger off, put it in, milk or water, keep blah, blah, blah. No, wrap it in wet something, put it on ice on the outside so you don't freeze or burn your own body part, you dumb shit, and don't put it in milk because it's a fucking bodily fluid from an animal that you're not. Holy fuck.
Never heard that.
It wasn't, the 80s was a weird time to be alive if you were my age.
Even I've heard that.
Oh boy.
That's like,
it was like
milk.
common knowledge, but it was like common misinformation.
Yeah.
Like a jumbo shrimp.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's like putting butter on burns.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Lock in that heat with a nice oil. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. So they go to the hospital. The kids are by themselves at the house.
Yeah, I don't. So I think this is when, like.
And they're a bunch of assholes to each other, except for JJ. Like the older kids are like.
Yeah.
Dicks to each other.
Everything's getting tense. And like, but that's the thing, like, since everybody's experiencing a different way, like the witch sister is.
She's attempting to have another ceremony.
Yeah, but and she comes out like the least scathed mentally, because Jack is gone. Like his brain was fried from the first purple light. Benny, his losing track of time and he's forgetful or whatever, so he's gonzo. Nick Cage
But I think it's more than losing track of time. I think time is out of whack for all of them.
Yeah, for everybody.
Yeah.
Because he knows I think he is probably the least, him and Lavinia are the least, like, scathed of them all. Because he knows what he's doing. He knows he's feeding the alpacas and he's putting them away.
Maybe you're right. And this does have precedence, because in the canonical literature, the quote-unquote sensitive are affected by mythos bullshit. So like your artists, your playwrights, your yada yada. He's like a simple country boy. So maybe he's not being affected at all by the mental aspect and like the weird shit of it. But maybe he's just losing time and that's fucking with him.
And the weed.
Right.
And the weed.
And and the weed.
To a lesser extent. I'm gonna lay this one on Elder God. But this also lends credence to the fact that the sister's an idiot too, because she's also not super affected until things take a turn for the strange.
She hears the high-pitched noise that comes out of the well when JJ's talking to it.
And
or whistling.
I was not rather, and I'm still not on board with it being a biological agent that they are ingesting. Because the point of the color out of space is, and they say this multiple times, I can back this up with the text, they say it was just a color. It was just a color. There was never oily shit in the water. It was just a color that came and went and fucked up an entire family's life. This quickly turned from a color out of space into like a old country buffet version of The Thing.
Well, I think even in the story, the implication is that this color is another life form. That's the way I always took
it totally is. But it's ethereal. It exists on a different plane. Like it is a color. When we get into our John Carpenter ripoff Thing-esque, like animals in the pen, slimy monster type bullshit, I was like, what? But whatever, we'll get to it.
So this is probably a stupid question, but do you think something was wrong with the water before the meteor hit, and it's just a coincidence that the water is making their brains act up?
It was bad acting. It was bad acting before the meteor.
No, I don't think so.
All right.
Because that's the thing.
I was trying.
It's backed up in the text because the whatever the color that the thing is, when it's being zapped by lightning in the story, something tries to pop loose and falls down the well.
Oh, okay. All right.
But they're not drinking it. Whatever. We'll get to it.
Well, and how is okay? Well,
anyway, so where were we?
The kids are there.
So they're on their way to the hospital. The kids are home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is where I'm blanking out. There were a lot of dead spaces where I was like so bored. When we were left alone with these kids, they had zero. I didn't buy them as friends, relatives. Like I didn't buy them as strangers on a bus.
No, I feel like it was a lot of just making sure that the shit in the house, the alpacas were fed and put back, and then they weren't, and then they were, then they weren't.
Yeah.
And JJ was just sitting in the yard.
Well, you have the whole bit about Benny getting put in charge, which Lavinia's not happy about, and then you have the whole thing with the phone, where they keep losing each other on the phone.
Yeah.
Lavinia and Nathan.
Yeah, he keeps calling from the hospital, and I get we have to have that trope of like, oh, the phone doesn't work, yada yada yada, and it becomes a point of contention later because, and I did appreciate that because later when Benny's trying to call 911, he's like not working. The first thing any reasonable person would do would be like, what the fuck are you talking about? How do you mean it's not working? Run over and grab the phone, which Cage does.
Right.
So, I mean, they start acting, maybe it's bizarre. They start acting more like normal humans the crazier they become. But yeah, so whatever.
Yeah. Well, maybe there's something to that.
I think it's just their acting. I think it's just it's a crazy cast of the mentally subnormal.
I don't get why Nick Cage was calling them on a payphone at the hospital, but instead of his cell phone where he could just text it and say, hey, mom's in surgery.
Right.
Be home tomorrow.
There are a lot of weird things going on to truncate this movie.
What hospital has
movie.
a payphone?
Well, because I understand the brevity of the visit, because over the course of time, as Lavinia is like trying to combat these forces, because she's getting wise and she's like, shit's going wrong. So she's looking at her Avon copy of the Necronomicon and decides, not for nothing, I have never worshipped any dark deities that have required blood sacrifices or mutilation, so I don't know how forgiving they are. But in most movies and pop culture references, like most of the time, if you're going to do some sort of ritual, you need some sort of ceremonial dagger or whatever. It happens in the Dreams in the Witch House. There's always something special. Lavinia is like, you know what? $12 box cutter and a fucking copy of the Avon Necronomicon. Time to call Cthulhu.
I don't think that happens yet.
Well, we're heading into that now.
We're getting close. It doesn't, we can skip a lot of this stuff because legitimately doesn't matter.
That actually happens after Nathan returns, but we're almost at that.
Yeah. So, but
although you did skip one of the highlights, which is the harvest of his fruit.
Yeah, his freak out when they get back and JJ's by himself outside and he freaks out for the first official time.
Most of the stuff I remember is the stuff that either hits or really conflicts with the text story. So yeah,
with the original story.
Let's do that, because this does, and it hits big. It hits big. So this is supported by the text. There's a great scene where Nick Cage, like, he goes out into his little garden and everything is going bananas. Now, fucking also, oh my God, this has been a day. Keep in mind, this movie takes place over 3 days. The meteor hits the next day. His fucking tomatoes are gigantic.
Yeah.
So he's picking these tomatoes the size of your heads, and there's like peaches and shit, and this is backed up by the story, because after the meteor hits, the first harvest on the land around where the meteor hit yielded amazing, huge, beautiful, glistening fruits and vegetables.
Right.
But as Nicolas Cage soon found out, bitter is poison on the inside.
I don't get, why would you have just taken a giant bite out of a tomato?
Because it was his... I get that. That's completely legit. Like, nothing is to be questioned there, because Nick Cage, this is his first time growing anything. Like, that's firmly established. He's not a farmer. So imagine his sheer delight at walking out into the garden and seeing unreasonably large tomatoes in an unfathomably short amount of time. Of course,
he's like, look what I did.
Yeah.
I got to taste this.
Yeah, you grab him in, he's in there washing them. I would feel pleased as punch too. The first thing, I would take the biggest bite I could. And then he's like, bleh, and then another, and he's like a classic Nicolas Cage tomato freak out.
And
yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, it's everything you want in a Nick Cage scene right there.
Yeah, it's him one after the other, just like, and he's so angry, and his wife's like, oh my God, what's going on? He's like, this all fucking sucks.
No, so this whole,
he's angry.
She's a stock trader or whatever she is. Their internet blows on the farm. And it's come up a long time ago at the beginning.
Right.
At the dinner scene. She's like, can you fix the internet? He's like, I'll go up and look at the satellite. I'll look at the dish or whatever the hell.
Which never happens.
No. And then this scene happens. And then they're screaming at each other because she's like, fix the fucking internet.
Yeah.
And he's like screaming at her about the tomatoes and whatever stupid shit. And then he's like, oh, that's a good idea, honey. At the end.
That's the thing. We're going to glance over a lot of these like tense and weird situations, because a lot of them are just strange outbursts of bizarre domestic abuse, and it's
stuck
like,
in my head.
There's nothing to do about it, because it's like, okay, we're both going nuts.
But I think the day-to-day things that they deal with, they're no longer capable of dealing with in a rational manner. Her internet outage, her little client throws her off the deep end. His tomatoes are throwing him off the deep end.
Yeah.
They're all losing it in the ways that are relevant to their daily routines.
And if you believe what she tells you, through context alone, it feels like she has dozens of clients, because every time she leaves a room to re-enter, she's lost dozens more. She's like, I'm hemorrhaging clients over my clients. Like, there was no contingency when you moved yourself up to a creaky old attic in the middle of fucking Arkham. Arkham, all the witch haunted alleys and shit really fuck up your Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
That was another thing that I'm on the fence about, because we're watching at some point the camera pans past the TV that's doing a weather report, and it hits all like the entire Lovecraft geological mythology.
The whole
It's like,
spectrum.
hey, we got scattered showers in Arkham. Dunwich has got 74 in the mountains. We got Innsmouth coming into blah, blah, blah. Ipswich and Kingsport are coming in. And I'm like, holy, you don't even want to leave one out just to be like, aha. Like, for the completionist fan to be like, actually, he didn't do. No, it was, boom, Innsmouth, Dunwich, Kingsbury, Kingsport, this, that, like Ipswich. And I'm like,
So again, I think that was laying ground for the now to be non-existent, Lovecraft, movieverse.
Mm-hmm.
And not only like whatever, Richard Stanley, I'm sure he wanted to start with maybe the most ambitious project, maybe, because there are more filmable Lovecraft material.
Absolutely.
I just think that maybe since he like wanted to open up that universe, but figured, what if I only get one? Let's do the one that's unfilmable. Nice one, dude. Fuck. Like the Shadow over Innsmouth is a fucking layup. And he's like, well, I'll just pick one of the ones where there's something completely undescribable and reduce it down to a single one shade.
Maybe he thought he'd blow it out
But
of the
Stuart
water.
Gordon tried to do Innsmouth for years and could not get the budget that it required.
If you watch Dagon, like the bones.
Yes, that came later.
But
But for years he tried to do it as a full-on Innsmouth and could not get it together.
Okay, here's the thing. It's the same story for Reanimator. He did the same thing. He shopped around a full length to a miniseries, to a this, to a that, to whatever the Reanimator actually became. So I'm glad I did not get to and have to live through a Stuart Gordon Shadow over Innsmouth, because it would, by Shadow over Innsmouth 3, there would be a fish monster fighting a disembodied penis, much like Herbert West Reanimator 3.
Well, Stuart Gordon had nothing to do with that. But we're getting off track.
It opened a door that was
Yes.
not, you can't, the first one opened a lot of doors. Let's just say that.
Yes.
Kayla says they had to list all the locations so you can win at Lovecraft Bingo. And
Everybody won. They filled the whole fucking card in the first row.
You were playing.
Say what?
Vatha says Dunwich Horror, already the best movie, Dave. We talked about this.
Listen, I know you love Dean Stanton, and I can't dissuade you from that, but to me, Lovecraft is not a psychedelic, freaky, hippie love fest, okay? No, I can't even think, because I was like, well, there was that one, but that was an adaptation of The Whisper in Darkness that I was thinking of. So nope, the Dunwich Horror always in film form has been zany. There's some cheap ones, like low budget ones too. We maybe talked about them. Not worth your time, I don't think.
Anyway,
Where were we?
yelling and tomatoes and
Oh yeah, we had to jump back. But no, okay, so whatever. Things are getting crazy. So
Now Lavinia says she's going to do her ceremony.
yeah. And so what a jarring shift of unnecessary tone, because we get a big long montage of this precious limited edition Avon produced copy of the Necronomicon. And so she's slicing up all the elder signs and all the gobbledygook all over her arms and stuff. And, not for nothing, maybe that particular book is magic and maybe they're all magic and maybe I'll try this later. But we see multiple scenes of her cutting herself over the book and blood falling onto the pages. And each time it's on a fresh, clean page.
So the book's meant to be magical at all. I think that, she's this, quote unquote wicked who's really not a true, in contact with anything. And everything that happens at this point is the influence of the color from outer space.
maybe it's just influencing her weird.
I don't think so. You're saying that. What are you saying exactly?
So I don't think Lavinia is truly magical at all. I think she's like a fake.
Oh
she
yeah, no,
thinks she's
totally
magical.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so therefore, the stuff that now happens to her has nothing to do with her low budget version of the Necronomicon. It's all the influence of the
No, yeah. My only thing is I'm just pointing at sloppy filmmaking. Every time blood falls from her arms or chest onto the book, the next time we cut back to it and more blood falls on, the previous blood is gone. And if you want to say, well, Dave, I've got an idea, Dave. There was wind, even though there shouldn't have been, obviously, because there's magic involved. It was a closed room, but there was wind blowing the pages of the book. Maybe the pages turn and the blood, the blood would be soaking in. So pages would be getting soaked with blood.
Yeah.
It would not be a fresh copy of that Avon Necronomicon every time.
And
Sloppy
she wasn't
film.
going to do this.
Yeah.
She
no.
was packing up to leave. the
Yeah,
house.
it's everybody, that's their thing. Like her and Benny are like, we got to get out of here. Like, this is crazy. Do you still have that ex-girlfriend? And he's like, of course I still do. We broke up. She'll never not be an ex-girlfriend. What kind of fucking question is that?
We haven't talked in months because she's an ex-girlfriend.
Do you still have that ex-girlfriend in Boston?
Yeah, that was something.
What a fucking, and not even like, do you still have that ex-girlfriend in Ipswich? Not even like gonna drop another fucking name, you hack. You've been doing it all the whatever. Boston. She lives in Boston.
That's the second time Boston came up because Nick Cage thought that Ward was from Boston.
Yeah.
He said actually it was from Providence.
You ever buy the cars, the clothes off of Craigslist?
Oh, and the car doesn't work. Benny tries to get the car to work. Car doesn't work.
Whatever. Trope.
That's right.
Cell phone dies. Car dies. Oh, but we keep touching in with little Jack whistling to his friend in the well. And one thing I did appreciate, although it was handled clunkily, was the cultivation of the flowering plants and the spreading of purple around the well.
Mm-hmm.
The well, yeah.
It was everything was on the head. This was just as on the head, but at least it was visually interesting because there were different shades of purple eventually.
And I mean, that whole scene, you could almost take that straight from the story. I mean, that really was a direct, reference to the story, the color spreading from the well, the flowers, all of that. Yeah,
but here's the thing. In the story, it turns everything gray. It turns everything ash.
Well, that they sort of get to that after the fact.
But it's from a fucking, whatever. Different thing. So where are we in the story? So yeah, okay. So Lavinia has now cut herself up, and so now I'm expecting her to be batshit insane for the rest of this story. She emerges from her room clad in long sleeves, so all of the markings that she has done to herself now null and void because she spends the rest of the movie in long sleeves, and also semi-rational.
She's got a cross on her forehead, and she's got her chest.
She doesn't have a cross. She has a small diamond.
Oh, whatever it is. And she's got her chest is all cut up, too.
Just a little bit. But, she went,
It's all hiding.
full-blown what's his nuts from Batman. Who's the guy who cuts himself? Damn it.
Oh,
Zaz.
Yes.
So she goes full-blown Zaz, slices herself the fuck to Kingdom Come, and as a filmmaker, a visual medium is like, get a fucking long-sleeve flannel on that bitch. What? And then she's just totally maybe her alien powers are pushing aside all the pain she would have, but she's not bleeding out. There's no mention that she carved herself up. It's just something she does on a whim and affects nothing, and she mentions it zero later.
Is
Well,
this
again,
when-
I took that to also be part of losing and shifting of time.
Yeah.
The time element is so I wouldn't even say it was even developed. It's just mentioned. They say, well, in space, there's a weird time continuum, blah, 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 blah.
But I think it becomes important in one of the next scenes.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't see any evidence of it. It's just we see the aftermath. If we saw a weird camera effect or any way depicting visually that people are losing time, I would buy it. But at this point, all we have is unreliable narrators because they're all going crazy claiming time is missing, but with zero proof to us as a audience member.
Well, I don't want to get too, far ahead, but, I think that leads to when you start seeing, family members who are no longer present, on the couch and all that. It's because time is bleeding together.
Well, and I feel like something happened. Maybe not. Well, so okay, when they were, I'm gonna backtrack a lot. When they were coming back from the hospital, they almost hit.
Oh yeah, the cat.
The cat that was no longer a cat. It was a
Right.
crazy monster thing. And I thought, looking back, maybe not, but I thought time got weird in the car. But maybe it didn't.
The whole time thing was an unnecessary element.
But it makes sense for Benny's his acknowledgement of that something was wrong.
When it's backloaded, yes, but in the moment, everything is just sort of laid out,
Yeah.
and we're spending valuable screen time on one-dimensional characters when we could be seeing visually what these characters are experiencing and not have dumb dialogue of just like, I don't know. I feel like I've been losing time. Like, it's a movie, fucker. Like, show me. Don't just look at the llamas or the alpacas and be like, uh-oh, I thought I put them away, but maybe I lost time. Show me a watch that's different. Here, look, I'm a genius. This is fucking free. Everybody owns a watch. Everybody's got a Casio. Say, hey.
So yeah,
look at
I
your
actually
watch.
disagree with you on that.
Okay.
I think that would have been too nail on the head. I think it's supposed to be somewhat ambiguous and.
But why is everything else so nail on the head? And they treat the time as this coy, coquettish damsel. I think it was just clunky, and he didn't know what he was doing. And you're saying, God moves in mysterious ways, and I'm like, he's a fucking awful director. It's all well and good to look in, and you can find artistic value or dalliances in it. I think this smacks to me of an undeveloped idea that he really wanted to get in and wouldn't take no for an. This movie smacks of passion project, by which every idea was kept regardless of merit. And the whole time thing, that could have been a really interesting element. Doesn't happen in the original text, so it would have been a departure. But if it were consistent, I'd buy it. It's like the Nicolas Cage smell thing. It's something picked up and dropped. It's the mom cutting off her fingers thing. It's picked up and dropped. She's a zombie, chops off her fingers, and then they're driving back home, and she's like, I can't believe I was so silly. I just thought, she just chalks it up to a bout with absent-mindedness. We've all been there. You were sitting there chopping carrots. Your mind drifts off to your Amazon wish list, and you've bisected your hand, and 2 of your fingers are gone. Whoopsie.
I hate when that happens.
Right?
Yeah. Every day. Thank God I at least still have my thumbs.
So, I think at the same time that Lavinia was doing her thing, I feel like, was that the same time that the mom fell asleep with JJ or was in the bed with JJ, which, by the way, they had adjoining bedrooms, and was that JJ's room, or did they just have separate beds, the Nathan and Teresa?
I think they brought, when they came home, JJ went into their bed because Nick Cage, that's a huge bed. There's no way that she leaves that room and he's got a king size bed to himself.
Right. I thought it was adjoining rooms and because the doorway looked like it was coming from another bedroom, but whatever. That's when the smell comes back again, the smell thing, because he kept smelling all the clothes, and he was that's when he got angry again.
Right. That's the second time it's picked up.
Right.
It's the first time on the initial discovery of the meteor. Oh, it stinks. And then that's dropped all the way until now.
Yeah.
But whatever. So he's getting pissed, and
so the mom falls asleep, and JJ. Oh,
let's do one horrifying thing at a time. So
it all
let's just jump to the big points.
Ugh.
So at some point there's a crazy noise happening in the barn. So Benny takes who does he take with him? It's either the little kid or the sister.
He has JJ because he
takes Jack.
JJ was
Yeah.
outside already.
Okay, so yeah, there's something going on in the barn. So they go in there and they're like, what's going on in here? And we get a full-blown monster. Now,
Yeah, the alpacas have fused.
but this is before the alpacas have fused. This is the one that's just like a lump with a dog head. Like, as if you couldn't steal from the thing any harder. It's got the dog head. It's a gross, mucusy body horror dog. And they run off after seeing it, tell nobody, mention it to nobody, don't even bring it up amongst themselves, and we move on in the movie. Now later, Nicolas Cage goes out because he hears another crazy noise. And this is the point when the llamas have been assimilated, because now we have the dog head with the big turd body, and now we've got 4 alpaca heads that are all completely like, think of a Cenobite llama. Cenobite alpaca. All the flesh is off. It's just like a weird King Ghidorah of 4-headed alpaca lump.
This is your timeline's not right, but you can keep going.
Yeah, I didn't. I think. Yeah, I thought we were off there too, but
Regardless, I could have swore because it was the kids go out and see the weird monster. Then Nick Cage comes out after he hears the alpacas freaking out, and that's when they get absorbed, and he sees them then.
Well, no, so they see the first thing, then they go back running, and then I don't remember what happens between then, but JJ was somewhere by himself, and the mom went running after him. Then that's when that happened, and then the alpacas was after that.
Well, what I'm trying to truncate and not necessarily stick to the narrative, but building up to the most horrific thing.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So which I think we're right about.
Yeah. So here we are. Whatever. The mom and JJ are now like freaked out and close to each other. Stuff is going wild. And at one point, okay, so let's also talk about this. Benny dies in the most avoidable way possible. Benny is like, I'm a big old dumb guy. I don't know where Sam, our dog, is. And he's like, oh, I think I heard something in the well. And he goes, oh, yep, I looked down. I got a flashlight. There's obviously no dog in this well. It is nothing but mud and garbage. He's like, but I'm going to go take a closer look.
Because he hears
barking.
barking.
Of course you are, Benny.
And he hears the dog barking.
Mm-hmm.
But, if I had to trust my ears or my eyes, and my eyes were telling me that's just an empty hole, I would be like, I ain't going to go down there.
I'm good.
Not Benny, though. He's a real smart character. So he goes down there. I maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm pulling this out of my ass, but I feel like he's just eviscerated by a purple light.
Yeah, he's basically absorbed by the light.
Uh-huh.
Imagine crawling into a giant laser cannon and someone turning it on like having a goof. Like, imagine you're in the Death Star, like climbing into the big thing, like, oh, we got to go up there and clean it. And you're like, pew, and just evaporated. Gonzo.
But before that happens, we've got the bolt of color that fuses.
Yes. So this is the biggest and longest lasting of the horrors. So the thing, erupts. We have a big fuchsia eruption of lightning, etc. And this reminded me, not that it wasn't heavily stealing from everything already, but do you remember that one X-Files episode where they had that weird supersonic alien jet that would implant people into the ground or a turtle into a rock?
Vaguely.
Moral of the story is kind of like that. So the weird light comes out and melds the mom and the son.
Right. They become fused.
So now we have mom facing forward with her weird, exposed organs and kind of looks like a vivisection. The son's head poking out the back. And here's where I'll give the movie credit. This, I believe to be a practical effect in most cases. Number one, breathtaking. This is where all the movie's money went.
Absolutely.
Was it worth it for the rest of it?
I can't.
So whatever. The practical effects in this are stunning. Number two, the sound design of that creature is haunting.
Horrifying, yeah.
Completely bone chilling. It's maybe the only part of the story like what the movie and the book share is like there's one moment of chilling horror, and that is that moment in this movie. And Nick is like, well, let's get him inside. We got to keep dealing with this situation. So they load the mom and the kid combo into the attic, and they're laying there, and they're doing nothing but wailing. And, dedication to the family, my hat's off to them, because if I had a now conglomerated combo family member in the room with me constantly wailing at the top of their lungs, I'd take a smoke break every 10 minutes or so, or just whatever to get out of the room. But they are dedicated to sitting next to this horrifying conglomeration of what used to be their family.
Yes.
And so, yeah, okay, Benny goes up like a light in the well. And so shit's getting serious. And Nick Cage, this is when he goes and sees the llama-headed.
Right, because
King
before Benny does his
Right.
well business, he tells Nick Cage about the alpacas.
Yeah, but it's
they
kind
hear
of
it. They can hear the noise.
Yeah, but it's
Right,
after seeing and hearing the mom-son combo, like coming upon this John Carpenter ripoff was almost like a breath of fresh air. Like it was lighthearted by comparison. It was like, finally back to being goofy. Because, obviously Nick Cage, he's got his shotgun and he's like, this thing is fucked, and he blows it away. And then the shift in tone toward the end, I think, needed to be a little more gradual, because there's a couple of clunks.
Yeah.
Because we go from, the horrifying family members on the couch to like this hilarious scene where he blows away. It's like whatever, like a shooting gallery puppet parade.
Right.
And then a very real and desperate scene where he grapples with like murdering his family that
His family.
obviously have no way at coming back from this. Like, let's be real. There's no way you can take them to any doctor and they'll be like, oh, leave him here overnight. We'll get him fixed up. This guy specializes in melding bodies from outer space origin. So he'll get you all, whatever.
The guy who put mom's fingers on is going to take these two apart.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, he has to know, despite all of the insanity and all the water, the tainted water he's been drinking, he has to know that this is a hopeless situation. So we get a tense moment of like the gun barrel to the head, but then it's like this disgusting makeout scene where he's like, okay, I'm not going to kill you. We'll make this work somehow. And he starts making out with her, and it's like this stringy mucus coming back and forth their faces. It's disgusting.
I think, it's just a snap. And I wonder if part of it is because of the alien force thing, and he kisses her the first time, and then he's like, you know what?
Yeah,
Fuck
he
it.
loves
We're
it.
gonna go on vacation. Like, we're gonna go on the vacation that you always wanted to.
Yeah, well, in the story, he also that's the thing. In the story, he's like a gently crazy person. Like, no one becomes horribly violent. So the switch was flipped for Cage. But yeah, he gets like to that point where he's like, no, everything's gonna be fine. I'll deal with this. But literally, what can you do?
Point, he's completely lost it. I mean, his
Yeah.
saying he's going to deal with it is obviously ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I was definitely intrigued to see how. 'Cause part of me wanted to be like smash cut to like they sold the farm. They're now like in a nice like suburb of Illinois somewhere, and like there's just this huge high chair where like the mom child sort of sit and go wah, and Nick Cage is like, oh honey, and he's like cooking eggs or whatever.
Well,
Or they could join the circus.
Yeah, or they could try
That's
to
true.
circus.
They said like when it first happened and the kid was like morphed into the mom, like that it looked like they were like she was sucking him back in. So like eventually he wouldn't even be there anymore.
That's
what he made it
Yeah,
sound.
they
made it
kept
sound like.
saying that, but again, it was one of those things that was picked up and never paid off because, spoiler alert, since it is a hopeless situation, eventually Nick Cage does pull the trigger on, their suffering.
Well,
And-
he pulls the trigger because at that point they're about to kill Lavinia.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So
yeah. But that's the thing. All of it could have been avoided, but we have to have a climax because you can't, like in the story, it's just like a very sad, whimpering sort of trailing off. But this is a movie, and we've already started ripping off the Thing 40 minutes ago.
Well, he said we're gonna be a family again. So he got. I think Nicolas Cage's whole thing was he wanted everybody to morph into one person, so they'd all be a family together forever as
That's
this
interesting.
giant. Because he wanted the mom, so he dragged Lavinia up into the attic to get eaten by the mom. And I think the way that she would have gotten eaten was to become a big morph of glob. And that was his plan, was to get her, then get Benny, and then get him, and then be one big alpaca gross group.
Benny was dead, though, by now, right?
No.
Yeah, Benny's...
Or he's dead now?
Yeah, Benny was
Benny's
already... Yeah, because it was just...
Benny's in the well already.
Yeah, he's in the well. It's just... I think he threw... I think Nick Cage... all of this is speculation, because when we really need exposition, it's left on the wayside. But it felt to me that in that situation, Nick Cage is like, all right, my switch has now been flipped from normal family to horror family. And so I think through weird alien powers and the color out of space, he somehow knew his wife and child upstairs now needed more than just, like, they were becoming something more. And that's why he took Lavinia and he's like, you need to get up there with your mom and blah, 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 slam. But again, it's not laid out because obviously it wasn't laid out because Kristen and I got two wildly different interpretations.
Well, he did mention that Benny, he didn't know where Benny was. Because when he brought Lavinia up there, he said something like, I don't know where Benny is, but we're going to be a family. We're going to be a family. And I swear that is going to be the reason why. And the only reason he blew his head off was because he wasn't alone. Or he blew her head off was because he wasn't alone when he did it. Because hydrogenator guy and the cop show up.
Hydrogenator?
The water scientist.
Oh my God. Yeah, I totally forgot. Like,
yeah, and time got weird for
the
them.
hydrologist fucking...
You should have watched this movie more than once.
It's so... But that's the thing. There's no reason to remember the hydrologist because he is a non-character both here and in the source material.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's the narrator.
Well, and so before all this happens, he goes to the mayor's office with his water sample and's like, this shit's fucked. Then the sheriff is like, because he shows him in his truck bed a mutilated, gross, disgusting bunch of cows or whatever they were.
It was a bunch of
all massed together.
Yeah, like so when Ezra's cat, there's a mention like, what's his name, Ward. He's like. The second time they visit Ezra, he says, I lost my cat. Mm-hmm. He's like, I'll keep an eye out for your cat. And he's like, if you see him, you will recognize him, brother.
And he's like, everybody's underground. Right. Everybody's talking underground. Can't you hear them?
Yeah, and why... whatever.
But in the original story, there's a segment that mentions that I think it was in the second season, animals in the surrounding farms started going weird.
There's one specific animal that was mentioned. Do you know it, Mark?
I don't recall.
It's a woodchuck.
Okay.
3 young boys find a woodchuck down by the creek and bring it home in a bag. And the person they show it to is so horrified by the way it is malformed that they burn it.
That's right.
They're like, this is this woodchuck is an affront to God, and they fucking burn it. Classic Lovecraft move.
So the ward and the sheriff are going to the house, and this at the same time is how Nathan is trying to drag Lavinia up to get eaten by the mob.
Yeah, quick though, if there were justice in this world, that sheriff would have been played by Brad Dourif.
Ooh.
Please tell me I'm wrong.
Oh, I could totally see that.
Like, just to show up, act crazy, and then get sucked up by a monster. Like, he was made for that role. Perfect. Oh my God. And I can't believe, not for nothing, and I cannot believe this didn't happen. Not even a cameo by Jeffrey Combs. He's been in every Lovecraft thing fucking ever.
Yeah, but I think that's a different production crew, director, totally different.
Still,
scene.
If you're going to literally break your neck nodding to everything Lovecraft related, You're gonna leave Jeffrey Combs in the cold? This is fucking Kane Hodder and Jason X bullshit. No, not Jason X. Freddy versus Jason.
No, not Jason X.
Yeah,
It's,
Freddy versus
You're
Jason.
thinking of Freddy versus Jason. Yeah.
This is classic Kane Hodder, Freddy versus Jason bullshit, and I'm gonna get to Twitter right now.
Do it.
Dear Twitter, hashtag where's my Combs?
So Ward and the sheriff are going to the house. They get to the house, knock on the door.
I do like the sheriff though.
Yes. Nathan comes out, answers the door, and he's like, "Hey guys, what's going on?"
Okay, so this is very close to the book, so I want to pay attention to it because in the book, Amy Pierce, his neighbor, the Gardners have dropped out of life, social life, church life, school life, everything. So he brings the sheriff and basically gets this scene, but a little crazier. Instead of a Nick Cage wandering around being like, "Look, everything's fine," Nahum is on the couch. And it's like super cold. And he's like, "Hey, welcome to my home." He's like, "Zenas, throw another log on the fire." Zenas ain't there. There is no fire. There is no logs. It's just like he's cracked.
Well, and that's what he says. Because they ask him where everybody is. And he's like, "Well, they're all sitting right here."
Yeah.
Right.
He's got his drink. He's drinking,
Yeah.
obviously.
He's always got his bourbon. He fucking plows through that shit. Not for
Yeah.
nothing, but in the middle of nowhere, where is this unending supply of top shelf bourbon that fucking Cage has got?
Well, he's got a
access
whole
to?
wine cellar.
Oh yeah.
Right. That's right. That's
Another
right.
unimportant fact. I thought for sure when we lingered on that goddamn wine cellar, he's like, "I'm gonna go get some wine for this terrible fucking hot dog stew I made."
I mean, it comes back at the end, but
Barely.
for like 4 seconds. But yeah,
Yeah.
that whole scene at the beginning where they're like, "Oh, open your finest bottle," and he's there. Nothing
To go with the
happens.
cassoulet.
He goes and gets it, and that was it. I'm like, why did we do this?
Yeah, so whatever. We've got sheriff and hydrologist running around, and
They hear her screaming, Lavinia screaming, and they go up there, and that's when what's his nuts shoots
here's
the mom.
Nathan.
Here's the crazy contrast. In the book, Nahum shows up, Amy, the neighbor shows up. Nahum's like weak as shit on the couch because the color has sucked him dry, and Amy says, "Well, where's your wife?" And he goes, "Oh, she's upstairs in the attic." So Amy goes up into the attic, and there is a noisome pile of disgusting verdigris and ash in the corner that is his wife. She is alive, and Amy, having no other option, with like a table leg, beats her to death because she is like an ash zombie.
Yeah, she's just like a messy pile.
Yeah, and
bush.
it's like so the graphic shift.
Miasmal.
The graphic shift in tone is a sad man finding a waste of people and then having to take it upon himself to end a life to stop suffering. And in the movie, it's like a madcap balls to the wall, like John Carpenter fight scene with a skin alien that has like a big fork bone tail and shit. I will never not enjoy though someone being caught unaware being ripped up into the ceiling. I think if you've seen Aliens, that's where it was perfected, but I will always love someone going, "All right, I'll go this way," and whoa, just like ripped off like by a bungee cord. I love it. So, and that's what happens to our lovely sheriff, our Brad Dourif wannabe.
He gets absorbed or picked up by a tree.
A tree.
Yeah, he gets picked up, but however you're ripped off screen, I love it.
Yeah.
And our hydrologist, this guy's got balls of steel. Our sheriff gets ripped up and makes no noise. So our hydrologist realizes, he goes, "Huh? What?" and runs back and gets the shotgun and looks up. That's when our sheriff starts to scream. As not a sheriff. Now keep in mind, not a hydrologist, nor am I a sheriff. I will never claim to be either. I get snatched up by anything and I'm lifted bodily from the ground, I'm going to be screaming my ass off the whole time. I'm not going to wait and see how it plays out. And as the thing is wrapping its branches around my neck to snap it like a twig, ironically, that's not when I'm going to be like, "Oh, wait, what the fuck?"
Well, hold on a second. Back up. Because the sheriff ain't dead yet.
What? We don't need to, Kristen, let's be real. We've been going for 2 hours. We need to get to the end of this movie, and we had not even touched upon the written story, which we're now going to have to jettison completely.
Well,
Yes.
you can't speed past the sheriff, who's the sheriff that actually was the one who killed the main character.
Ward. Yeah, you skipped the sheriff shooting Ward.
Yeah. So
The
they
sheriff
all
shot
they're-
Ward?
Yes, no, the sheriff shot Nathan. So they're all running.
I'm sorry.
out of the
yeah,
house,
Sorry,
Yeah.
And Nathan Ward's running after Lavinia, who's going toward the light or whatever, and Nathan comes out of the door with a shotgun aimed at them, and then the sheriff shoots him.
Right, but Nathan was aiming at the color in the well, but
Right.
the sheriff misinterprets that
Right.
and shoots Nathan.
Yeah, but by then, it's like, whatever. This comedy of errors needn't be. Like, at this point in the movie, the monster mom has been dispatched. Everything is what it is. Lavinia, despite the fact she's held together most of the time, is now walking toward the well, and like all of her cuts and stuff glow.
Right.
It's on the box, actually. You can look at it. There she is glowing. Her eyes go purple, and it's like this whole like Gozer sort of situation. And I didn't take it, whatever. If Nick Cage was going to shoot the light, fine. If that was your interpretation, I don't know. I don't know why, but he's crazy. I don't know why you would think shooting a light would do shit.
Well, I think he was trying to shoot past her so that it would stop her from going into it. But regardless, for the girl that wanted to leave, this entire movie ends up not leaving.
Right.
That's the thing. The departures from the original story are the things that are the worst about it, because in the original text, it plays out like all the cops show up because they're like, shit's fucked. And this is, keep in mind, the story takes place so long ago that it's horse-drawn carriages. Everybody's riding around on horses.
Right.
So after they bring the police, Amy Pierce brings the police, and the whole thing's fucked. Like, they drudge the well. They find a bunch of bones from the family in there. Like, Zenas, I think, was in there. In the story, the attic has 2 rooms, and the youngest son and the mom both go crazy in a room and scream French at each other. But the big difference, and I don't know why they didn't show this, or maybe they did and I'm just too stupid and missed it. But in the story, the color out of space, its whole point, it's not evil, it's not nice, it's just a benign life form that is intangible, that has been over the past few seasons sucking the life out of the land around it. It's not a disease, it's not a contagion, it's just some ethereal, unknowable thing that, for all intents and purposes, for lack of a better term, lived in the well and drew life from every animal, vegetable, and mineral within, like, whatever, a mile. They called it the blasted heath.
Right.
And
they constantly refer to it as.
yeah, and so at the end, it kind of feels like a Nerf gun where it's like, poo, 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 out of the well during another storm, obviously. 4 lights, maybe, whatever, 3 or 4 lights shoot up and fly off into space, but one goes, but falls back in. So us as the reader, I as a child, not a child, I was an adult when I read this, I thought, oh shit, there was multiple life forms down there that were hidden in that meteor. Enough of them were able to soak up enough energy to shoot off, but one stayed.
Right. One or didn't have enough energy to get away.
Yeah, and
that's the way I always took it.
Yeah, which totally makes sense, because when you think of it as, before you know that there's multiple beings of energy down there, you're thinking, okay, there's a singular thing sucking up the energy and the life force and everything of this area. And it's also making things weird, insects and shifting morphologies for some reason too. I don't know. That seems like it would waste more energy. I'm not an alien.
I always took it as like a side effect almost.
Yeah. I who am I to question alien motives?
Right.
But in the movie, it didn't feel like there was that. I felt like everything got away, is what I'm saying. So in our epilogue, where our hydrologist, who now has a little bit of baby powder in his hair to show that he's old, is like standing in front of a big aqueduct. He's like, yep, that was a crazy time in my life. And I never drink the water in Arkham.
The end.
So, first question I have is, since you were absent for most of the movie, hypothetically in a hydrology lab testing all this crazy water you've been taking, how are you telling the story? How do you know what Nick Cage and company did at home? Like, I'll grant you found Ezra's mummified corpse and the loop of his exposition that he left for you. But don't be like, and that's why I never go back to Arkham, because in your mind, your story should be, I showed up, met jailbait, took some water, met a hippie 3 times, and then saw something crazy. Your
So
story
let's
should
back
be
up a
15
second.
Yeah,
minutes.
there's a whole piece that was missing.
Which one?
Yeah.
The whole
Which
time
piece?
thing. Oh my god.
Well, because the
Right.
time thing is fucked. It's stupid. I don't like the time
Well,
aspect.
Well, there's a couple of things that you sort of glossed over there. I mean, one is definitely the time thing, because when Ward goes into the farmhouse, he's chased by Nathan, and that's when you have all the appearances of the family members who are deceased, and which to me was the time sort of unraveling and coming back together. And then you've got the the colorless debris, referencing the story, the ash. But then as far as the hydrologist, I never took it that he was narrating all the stuff that happened while he wasn't there. To me, something weird was going on with the water, which he was studying. He came back at the end, saw something really weird happen. The company that he was working for, which I don't think he fully had control over, decides they're going to finish this dam anyway.
Yeah, that happens in the story too.
Right. And so now he knows that this dam has basically led to all this water being on top of this, area where this crazy stuff was going on. So he's not going to drink the water there.
Right. My thing isn't a logical issue, because he would obviously have great reason not to drink the water. Mm-hmm. My issue is, like, I don't know. I feel like, I don't know.
I think you're interpreting his narration as being the same as in the story.
It's sloppy filmmaking.
And it's not.
It's just sloppy filmmaking, because he bookends the movie. Because at the beginning we have narration, we have a legitimate reading of the text. So you're set up as, okay, we're bookending with like true to form text, great. But at the end, it's narration as if our dude has been narrating the whole time. Like, you can't come in the 11th hour with narration.
Yeah.
See, it didn't come across to me that way. It came across to me, in the beginning, he started telling his introduction, and at the end, he's telling his outro, so to speak. I never took it as he was narrating the entire story that happened in the middle.
Well, no, I don't think that it was necessarily. I mean, it should have been, because in the story, it's him.
But like you said, that wouldn't be possible.
Yeah, it would be him. But here, it would be totally possible, because all he would have to do is do exactly what you did in the story. Be the hydrologist. That doesn't have to change. But since it took place like 2 years after everybody had, like, because the story takes place years after everyone had gone crazy and died. And it's the hydrologist that goes to meet Amy Pierce doing the water survey, being like, hey, spoiler alert, Arkham wants to blow up a thing and make a reservoir over here, so you might have to move. And that's when Amy Pierce says, oh, I wouldn't make anything with water or anything with humans over here. And that's when you hear the story. You could have done that. Have the hydrologist sit down with Tommy Chong and be like, hey, brother, don't do that, because let me tell you a wild, wacky story about Nick Cage and his family. Easy. Could have did it.
Yeah, you definitely could have. I think that whole conceit works way better in the written word than it does in the film.
Right. But that's I think another sticking point I have is our hydrologist character is our bookend, but he shouldn't be. He's like, well, I heard about the story. Here's me. There I am meeting a 16-year-old. At the end, he's practically looking at the camera. He's looking down the barrel of the lens with the reservoir behind him, being like, and that's why. It's not like, we got it. I get it. We got it. There's crazy shit happened. We don't need you at the end hammering in the last nail that's already been driven in 3 inches past the surface of the wood. We get it.
Yeah, I feel like it could have ended with him walking out in the like nuclear winter, essentially.
Yeah.
And then panning out to where it's green around the circle, and then
Yeah.
that was it.
How many people at the end of any Friday the 13th movie go, and that's why I don't go camping at Crystal Lake no more? Murderers! No, don't do that. Like, zoom out, show the blasted heath. Don't say the blasted heath. I'll be like, wow, a little subtlety finally. But then we get like a baby powder sideburns hydrologist being like, don't drink the water. Am I right, folks? I got that, bitch. I saw the explosion.
We were there.
I was there.
We saw more of it than you did.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
Exactly.
all you saw was a weird interaction with a strange family before they were crazy. Cut to purple light shooting out of a well. So yeah, you must have questions.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a hydrologist. You're naturally curious. You know the old saying, curious like a hydrologist. What the fuck?
Everyone goes around talking about that. Yes.
Yeah. And you know, every time anyone had any question like about any scientific discipline, they were like, oh, what kind of flower is this? A hydrologist? And he's like, yeah, it's a hydrangea. Fucking what? He's not a Dr. Frankenstein. Anyway, I'm not going to say that I hated this movie.
But you hated this movie.
I did hate a lot of things about it. And that's the thing. With a lot of these movies I see, my problem isn't necessarily with the content. It's like the missing potential. There was so many things that could have been fleshed out that weren't in service of not fleshing out something else and dropping it.
Did you know that Elijah Wood was one of the producers?
Did not.
Yes. And so did you see the movie Mandy?
No, but there's a trailer before this movie, and Krista's like, it just starts, and I'm like, no, this is a trailer for Mandy.
So it's the same production team, not
Yeah,
Richard Stanley, but the producers.
You can totally tell.
And they basically, during the course of making Mandy, they were, starting to pre-produce this, and had met with Richard Stanley, and they decided they wanted Cage, and they basically drafted like a faux contract on the spot on the set of Mandy, and we're like, we want you to commit to Color Out of Space, so just sign this.
Oh yeah,
and he did.
But I'm sure there was because Mandy came out so well. But I think because there was a missed opportunity here, because the original story is a story of sadness. It's a story of unjust punishment. It's a story of Job. It's a family blighted by essentially God. It's a color from space that comes down through no fault of its own, through the family of the gardeners. But this thing wants to live, and the gardeners have no choice but to try and survive too. So it's a sad story. They went slowly crazy and withdrew from society and became a sad, like, desiccated family. There is mileage in going the opposite way, where everybody gets super juiced up and angry and jacked. But you need...
This tried to split the difference.
Yes.
Is what I think you're going for. Yeah.
They're splitting the difference. And not only that, but like, if our characters are going to end up cannon fodder, or you want me to care about them, I need you to commit. Make them with character traits, even if they're bad actors, or kill them off quickly. Don't make me sit through a long-ass surface-level conversation through the whole fucking movie.
I think if they did the movie the way the story is told, the way you're telling it to me, I think John Krasinski would be a good Nathan.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, John Krasinski.
If they were going for a more subtle approach.
Right,
absolutely.
right.
Yeah, Nick Cage is to anger what John Krasinski is to melancholy.
Yeah, like
Right.
he could be a very sad character, like that movie where everybody can't talk. That one.
I want to say Noise is Off, but that's not it.
No, that's not it.
It's a quiet place.
Quiet
Place.
Place.
I want to say a
Yes.
bedtime story, but that's not it.
A bedtime story.
Like
So,
I like
know
that
where-
movie. Yeah.
It was excellent, that movie. So I know we're 2 hours in, but one thing that I wanted to sort of
Yeah, go
bring
for it.
up, one thing I wanted to bring up is that in rereading the story, which I hadn't read in quite some time, something that came to me, which is probably not an original intent because of the time that the story was written, but I kept, seeing it as like an environmental metaphor, which certainly, wouldn't have been Lovecraft's intent, but reading it now, it had that effect on me. But I think Stanley was definitely going for that.
So when you say environmental, you're saying like it's you're
I think there was definitely an indication of like water pollution.
for
that
sure.
whole
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely hammered home hard in the film,
right?
Because
definitely radiation burns.
You're right.
Yeah, but in the story, obviously, the story is going to predate a lot of scientific stuff.
Exactly. But in reading it now, it did, before I watched the movie again, it did, sort of have that resonance with me, which I know is not an original intent, but it did. I did feel it, and then watching the movie, I felt like he must have, come across that as well.
Because that's interesting to me. Because everybody's obviously going to bring their point of reference to the story, and to me, that story always screams like more than everybody says that Lovecraft mythos is like callous indifference. Like Cthulhu doesn't give a shit about mankind, but he's definitely a big scary monster that's coming to end the world. Like there's no two ways about the Cthulhu Street or Nyarlathotep or whatever. Pick your god of choice.
Right, it's unknowable horror that's coming to bring the end. Yeah,
but they all have an agenda. The Color Out of Space is the only Lovecraft story in which our antagonist is not malevolent. Like however it got here, it was flung off a rock, these life forms, and plummeted to Earth. They, I assume, did not want to get here because they leave at the end or try to.
Right. Well, unless they are quote unquote hunting, sucking energy and then moving on to the next source.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. To me, it always felt like benign. The color shows up. It wants to get out of there. And that's why I'm going to, I sort of hinted at this earlier, dropped it like the movie does and forgot about it. But I think that when the first night it's there and the tempest erupts and it is attracting lightning like a magnet, it was trying to juice itself up to get the fuck back out. I think that it seized upon that because, every city in Lovecraft country is always plagued with thunderstorms and lightning. So it was just a layup that this meteorite was like, give me that juice. And once that was over, and it's like, well, shit, it jumped down into the well and started leaching life force from literally everything around it. And it's just benign. Like it's not, maybe it's like a parasite. Like leeches aren't evil things. They need other life forms to survive.
The way they survive.
Yeah. And through no fault of anybody's, they're in this situation. And that's what sucks. The gardeners are completely and utterly destroyed over the course of several years through a slow, grinding, depressing process. And we get to see it all through the eyes of Amy Pierce, who gets to see his friends and neighbors slowly deteriorate. And in one case,
withdraw from the world.
Yeah, and withdraw. And like not only mentally, but physically deteriorate. Right. And you have to kill one of them. It's such a sad story. And if you want to change that into insane, do it. But you're still going to have to make the characters consistent and also worthwhile.
So, two crazy things. Do you think the grasshopper that comes out of the well that JJ watches fly away,
the praying mantis,
yes, goes over and kills Ezra?
First of all, that praying mantis was fucking bullshit. Because it's a fucking color. I knew when that fucking praying mantis, I called this from 1,000 yards. When that praying mantis shows up, I didn't say it out loud because I'd already talked a lot through the movie. But I said, this is going to be the fucking thing. And when the dog monster showed up and then the spaghetti-headed alpaca monster showed up and the body horror, I fucking closed my eyes, put a blindfold on and sunk a 3-pointer. I was so fucking right. Listen, I love The Thing too, Richard Stanley, but it's not this story.
My second thing is I wonder if the smell that Nicolas Cage keeps smelling is like the smell of his body burning. Like the
radiation?
insides, his insides. Yeah, because he's got all the radiation burns all over his arms that he ends up getting. And I wonder if he's kind of burning from the inside out. So he keeps drinking to kind of, because he can't feel.
There's no way to prove or disprove anything because all of their symptoms are wildly different.
Right.
But as far as Ezra, I almost was, I almost thought maybe not necessarily the praying mantis, but the cat that he references might have had something to do with his demise.
Well,
Maybe.
yeah. So let's talk about Ezra for just a minute. So Tommy Chong, Ezra, when we see him and he is dead, obviously he's dead, because anytime in a movie when you walk into a room and there's a person facing away from you and you say, "Hey," and they make no motion, they're fucking dead.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what killed him? I don't know. He was mummified. If it was his...
Well, I don't know if it was mummified. It almost looked like, like you were saying how, the color is absorbing. So it was like he was desiccated, like everything was drawn out of him.
Right. Well, mummified, I'm just saying he was sucked of moisture. Like he was...
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. He, for some reason...
It's because he drank all the coffee, all
Well,
the water.
And that's the thing. Consistency would have gone a long way to make this a great movie, because if they were all suffering from the same thing, because in the story, they're animals, they're trees, the grass, their skin, everything starts taking on an ashen color and they start like decaying because the color is bleeding them dry. Mm-hmm. If in the movie, the motivation of the color isn't cut and dry. It's not trying to suck up energy to get the fuck out of here. And that's where the diciness comes in. Because if it were simply there to get the fuck out of there because it was an accident, it would not expend energy by making John Carpenter style monsters. It would not make people go crazy. It would just do what it is in the story and as fast as it could leech life at around anything within its purview.
Mm-hmm.
So in the movie, I kind of got the feeling that more than wanting to get out of there, it was trying to convert this to a facsimile of its homeworld.
Right. I think that's what the pivot was, where instead of maybe because of it's a movie, you can't have, we learned it from the Hulk, you can't have an anti-hero and you can't have an anti-villain either. You need the color needed to be evil to be sold as a movie. So I totally get that. But if its intent was to be like, fuck this, I'm terraforming, obviously I'm never getting out of here alive necessarily, so I'm going to terraform. Again, maybe that's true, but it's one of umpteen zillion things that we've talked about that is possibly there.
Right.
Maybe not.
Well, I think it was showing Lavinia, like, see, this is what I'm doing, when it showed that image of its homeworld.
Yeah. And if you're it can be like every other piece of art. It can be taken one of two ways. It's either something brilliant and open to interpretation and masterfully crafted to leave all of these things open-ended, or it's sloppy ass filmmaking that proves that The Island of Dr. Moreau was not lightning in a bottle.
So I'm going to put the difference there. I'm going to say that there's definitely, it's not a perfect film in any way, but I also don't think it needs to, tie up every loose end in its intent. And I kind of like it for its wackiness and its sort of taking of the story as a launching, board and going someplace different.
Yeah. I don't get me wrong. Once I divorce myself from the source material, that is, definitely lessening the blow that I receive when I'm watching this movie. But it's still, even if I forgive all the Lovecraft sins and all the nods and all that shit, it's still sloppy filmmaking. If I am having trouble, like, I don't consider myself above average. So if I'm your average person and I'm watching this and I'm thinking, who's Sam? And Sam's the dog. And I'm thinking, why are these people acting like this? And I'm just a legitimate, regular ass, not a hydrologist, asking legitimate questions as a human being, also not a sheriff. And I'm asking these questions like, if it can't make me suspend my disbelief even for a minute, that's...
Well, I think
that's in the telling.
I don't know. I'm probably below average when it comes to movie watching, but I would recommend this movie, honestly.
You should see it. We can't do it justice.
I wish...
It's definitely a spectacle.
Yeah, I wish that there was more of like the psychological stuff than the gross, disgusting stuff. But the fact that I remembered the entire movie, I think says something because I usually forget everything.
If it was more of a like, that's what I
There
like.
you go.
Though.
It made a mark.
Yeah.
It made a mark.
The psychological parts and like, because there are interesting elements here. I don't want to shit on the whole movie
Right.
because there are so many things that I'm just going to lay at the feet of whatever you want to make the excuse is, poor filmmaking, whether they didn't have the budget, whether they didn't have a great script. And I know Richard Stanley worked on this script with somebody else. So,
Yes.
you know, I cannot say, why do you, a 60-year-old man, not know how to write in a teenage voice? Whatever. I get that. So it is what it is, but it's not shitty enough that I can point and laugh like a Seagal film.
Mm-mm.
And it's not good enough that I can say it's like a Dagon where it transcends all other Lovecraft media where you can say that's the good one.
Well, it probably, for people that don't like me, who never watched or read the story or really has read a lot of Lovecraft, I mean, do you want to know what this got on Rotten Tomatoes?
I'm sure it got
Sure.
high marks, right?
It got an 86%.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of that was probably people that like Lovecraft in one aspect, but that aren't like
Well,
movie snobs.
I'll be fair. I'm going to give it some praise. It is beautifully shot. Like
Oh,
the
yes.
framing, the cinematography, the color palette, obviously beyond the fuchsia, like everything's shot inside a house, or like the lighting is beautiful. Like it's beautifully shot. It's just so tragic to see this beautifully shot, beautifully sound engineered, like masterpiece of the eye and the ear, and then have these people walk through being like, I put a hot dog in a thing and there's corn. I got to get some Beaujolais. Like,
So I think you inadvertently just nailed my appreciation for the film, because I'm a huge fan of Euro horror. Stuff like Fulci, Argento, that sort of stuff.
Okay.
Where it's really about the visual and the atmosphere and the mise en scène more than the plot.
okay. Yeah.
So maybe that's why I was just so taken by the look and feel and
Yeah.
weirdness of it and the tone of it,
That's a
and
good
was
point,
able to
Mark.
overlook the plot details.
If you like giallo style horror, you will like this. If you liked Suspiria, you'll like this.
So Suspiria is one of my all-time favorite films.
Yeah, this is definitely like a big technicolor, kaleidoscopic. It's a spectacle. That's what it is. Like, there's no other way to put it. But it does suffer from lag from time to time. Even that's part of it too. What keeps me from being so angry that I'll recommend this movie fervently to people is because all of those boring chunks that are broken up by Nick Cage appearances, if those were crazier, I'd probably feel better. Or if they weren't there, I'd feel better. But when you have a really great meal, but then you put scoop after scoop of mashed potatoes on it until the really great meal is now like under the strata of spuds, much like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, it ruins the meal. Just leave the potatoes at home. Trim the fat, keep it tight, leave the boring shit out. If something doesn't make sense in a story, or if you can't develop it, let's drop it. But here it is. It is what it is. This is the finished product. It is a labor of love. It is an artiste doing what he thought fit his artistic vision, and that is why it gets a recommendation. It's not committee approved. It's not a big budget thing. It's a insanely specific thing that just happens to be ripping off other insanely specific things.
But doing it in its own way.
Yeah.
But it's so weird. It's kind of like, that's what all culture is, though. It's everything that's come before it, put in a blender, and now it's a different weird shade of brown. And that's what this is.
Or fuchsia.
I think this movie is worth it for like the news interview scene. That's gold.
Ugh.
The King Ghidorah alpaca, when he milks the alpaca.
Oh yes, we didn't even touch on that.
I can't believe we skipped over that, because that's this fucking like, I like it. It's Oh, it's a Mel Brooks joke. Because I swear to God, I don't think the words "he's going to be milking an alpaca" had gotten an inch away from my lips before the movie smash cut to Nicolas Cage yanking the shit out of some alpaca teats.
Yeah.
And I was like, no fucking way did that just happen.
And looking back at Ward, like, now alpacas don't supply a lot of milk.
Right.
Like, who?
I like to give him fennel.
Yeah.
I 100% expected Nicolas Cage to like do that hilarious, like sort of jocular, sort of good old farm boy type thing and like lift up one of the alpaca's udders and like give Ward a squirt in the face with the milk.
Yeah.
But you know for a fact that when Nicolas Cage, in the moment as an actor, not as a character, Nicolas Cage, in reality, scooped up real alpaca milk and drank it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, probably.
And you know,
Absolutely.
as he was doing it, he's like, now I've got the strength of 2 alpacas. Because that was the second take. Now I've got the strength of Nicolas Cage
Alpaca Man.
and 2 alpacas.
Perfect.
Yeah, Alpaca Man works closely with the Puma Men. Same part of the world, the Andes. Anyway, Mark, thanks so much for coming on the show and talking to me about
This
this
was a
movie.
blast.
Holy shit.
This was a blast.
What a time. I
apologize for the technical difficulties at the head, but we got through it.
That's par for the course. That the live show is not the live show without 8 minutes of something being broken.
It
up
wouldn't
top.
be normal if something didn't happen.
But yeah, I think I'm going to have to make. I'm going to watch this a few more times because it does need multiple viewings. I'm not usually one of those guys, but I think on my off time, I'm going to watch this a couple more times. I might even force Scott on my other show to watch it to see what he thinks.
He was here before, but
We'll
don't know if
see.
he's still here, but-
This might be one of those movies. This might be one of those movies where I try and get people to watch, but they might. Like I've been on a campaign for the last 12 years to get everyone within the sound of my voice to watch Under Siege 2 Dark Territory. It's not happening. I don't know why.
I like that one.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
Under Siege 2 Dark Territory is maybe like in terms of perfection, like people will say that Back to the Future is a perfect script. I would say that Under Siege 2 Dark Territory, and I will always call it Under Siege 2 : Dark Territory because it's a perfect action movie script. And it takes place on a train.
I like that movie, and we've seen that. I've willingly watched that with you more than once,
What
and
a
I
good-
would willingly watch this with you more than
Steven
once.
Seagal has some gems.
Yeah, with this movie.
I don't think I've ever seen Under Siege 2.
Oh my
Oh
god.
my goodness gracious! Well, I think it's another dissection.
But it's got everything. It's got satellite dishes. It's got trains. It's got German terrorists. It's got Steven Seagal groping what's her face who got kicked off of Grey's Anatomy. What the hell's her name? She was on 27 Dresses too. Katherine Heigl.
Katherine Heigl.
Yeah, some dodgy stories came out of that movie. We'll talk about that another time. But let's also thank the people who came and hang out in the typing square. Thanks everybody
Thanks,
if you
Typing Square.
showed up and
Thank
are
you.
still here. What a trip, I gotta tell you.
And I was worried if we'd have enough to talk about.
And there's still more.
I was not. That's why
I know.
Here's the thing. I purposefully did not watch it a second time because I knew if I watched it a second time, I would take notes and I would over-explain. So I thought, here's the rub, Dave. Don't watch it again. Just try and do what you can remember, and it'll keep it to a tight 90.
Nope.
We're
Nope.
at fucking 2:30.
And we didn't even touch on the whole Richard Stanley, controversy.
Yeah, the whole Richard Stanley controversy, like the implications of the actual story, like the legitimacy of all the banality of the horror. Like there are so many good things in the original story. But for another time.
Absolutely.
It's been one hell of a Flamingo Friday, and depending on where you are, it might be a social distancing Saturday.
There you go.
I know it's probably past midnight where you're at, Mark. I'm not wearing a watch, but I can guess.
It is 12:30.
It is just about 1 o'clock here.
Hey, Happy New Year.
Oh, thank you.
Anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. We will see you next week with God knows what else on the next live show. So again, this is a great way to end it. I don't know how. So I'm Dave.
I'm Krista.
I'm Mark.
That's how we do it, guys. We'll see you next week on the live show.
Bye.
Bye.